Chapter 909. Yang Dingtian flew towards the light. He found that although it looked very close, it was actually very far, more than a few hundred miles away. After flying closer, Yang Dingtian was certain that this was the mystic meridian essence. Wu Yoming's research was completely correct. This profound vein essence was indeed a kind of energy life. Because some kind of tear occurred in the world, the energy exchange between the surface and the Earth's core completely relied on these profound vein essences. However, this profound vein essence was completely different from Yang Dingtian's imagination. In Yang Dingtian's impression, the profound vein essence should be similar to the human body's veins. At most, it would not exceed 3 to 5 feet, which was dozens or hundreds of veins. But in fact, the profound vein essence in front of him, he didn't know how long it was. It could be tens of thousands of meters, hundreds of miles, or thousands of miles. In short, its top was connected to the yin-yang mirror's heavy water, and its bottom was connected to the depths of the Earth's crust. Moreover, its number was completely endless. Even Yang Dingtian didn't know how many veins there were, but it was definitely not less than thousands or tens of thousands of veins. In short, this was an extremely complicated system of veins. At this time, each profound vein essence was shining with a mysterious light. He could clearly see the energy coming and going, and the light inside was shuttling back and forth. Of course, what Yang Dingtian didn't know was that the profound vein essence collected by his master, Dongfang Minmi, was indeed only a few feet long, because the classification of the profound vein essence was perhaps even more exaggerated than the human's profound vein. The profound vein essence could be divided by age, and also by energy level. Divided by age, there were dozens of years, 1 or 200 years, 1,000 years and 10,000 years. Divided by energy level, it could be a profound vein essence born in a mountain, or a profound vein essence born in a lake. Then what was the level of the profound vein essence in front of him? Only God knew. Perhaps the profound vein essence existed for as long as the yin-yang mirror existed. Not only that, these profound vein essences were born in the yin-yang mirror. So no matter from which perspective, the profound vein essence here was undoubtedly the highest level. Its level had even exceeded the knowledge of human martial artists. Since he found the profound vein essence, the next step was to collect it. How to collect the profound vein essence? His master Dongfang Minmi had once taught Yang Dingtian this. This was an extremely complicated process. It was no less complicated than the most complicated surgery. It was very simple. All he had to do was remove the profound vein essence from the node. This node was the root of the profound vein essence. As long as he kept it, he could grow a brand new profound vein essence in the future. But at the same time, you must not break any of them, and you must not destroy any of the energy flow inside. The profound vein essence was extremely powerful, and could withstand extremely powerful energy attacks. However, it was very, very fragile. As long as the energy circulating in it leaked out, as long as the energy dried up, it would immediately wither and turn into ashes in an instant. Therefore, Yang Dingtian had to remove them from the nodes one by one, but he couldn't destroy the energy flow inside. Very quickly, Yang Dingtian found the node of the profound vein essence. It was an energy ball of light. It was inside the heavy water, and countless profound vein essences were growing from it. Because the profound vein essence ignored any physical damage and could withstand extremely powerful energy damage, it was impossible to cut it off. It could only be removed from the nodes. Seeing the densely packed profound vein essence on the nodes, Yang Dingtian's scalp went numb. There were at least tens of thousands of them, and each of them were intertwined with each other, forming a very, very complicated circulatory system. Yang Dingtian took out 1,000-year-old's demon core from his bosom. For a long time, this demon core would temporarily replace the role of the nodes and act as the energy circulation center of the countless profound vein essences. Next, it was time to test Yang Dingtian's speed. He took a deep breath, and then he started. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Yang Dingtian's speed was truly fast to the extreme. Using profound chi energy, he pulled out the profound vein essences from the nodes one by one, and then quickly inserted them into the 1,000-year-old's demon core. His speed was completely insane. There were at least dozens to hundreds of them per second. There was no other way. He had to be this fast. Otherwise, these profound vein essences would be damaged. Every profound vein essence's opening was exposed to the vacuum for no more than 1/100th of a second. Of course, as long as it was not more than 1/10th of a second, it would be fine. But Yang Dingtian could do it 10 times. These profound vein essences directly drilled into the owl's demon core as soon as they touched it. That's right, the extremely hard 1,000-year owl's demon core could not be pierced even by the bloody black gold sword. These soft profound vein essences could be easily drilled in. Then, he continued to exchange energy with the owl's demon core. The profound vein essences were extremely heaven-defying. As long as it was energy, it could do it, no matter if it was strong or weak, and no matter what attribute it was. Just like this, hundreds of profound vein essences were extracted every second. After a full 5 minutes, the collection of profound vein essences was completed. These 5 minutes were an unprecedented 5 minutes for Yang Dingtian. And it was also the most tiring 5 minutes. His profound qi and spirit were almost completely exhausted. After the last profound vein essence was pulled out from the node, suddenly, whoosh, the more than 30,000 profound vein essences suddenly shrank. One by one, they broke away from the depths of the Earth's crust thousands of miles below, and became only 3 feet long. This scene was incomparably mysterious and incomparably gorgeous. Previously, tens of thousands of profound vein essences were thousands of miles long, but when gathered together, they were dozens of meters thick. In an instant, they shrank to only 3 feet long, and as thick as an arm. However, it was still a complete energy circulation system. The reason why it shrank to such a small size was because the energy it needed to transmit had shrunk countless times. Previously, the energy transmitted and circulated was a full 1/10th of the yin-yang mirror, but now it only needed to circulate a demon core. Although this was a 1,000-year owl's demon core, it was only a 1/10th of the yin-yang mirror's energy, not even a 1,000,000th. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly the entire yin-yang mirror shook violently. Then, Yang Dingtian was shocked to see the heavy water layer of the yin-yang mirror above his head suddenly fall. That's right, the entire yin-yang mirror fell directly. Yang Dingtian flew down quickly and dodged the fall of the entire yin-yang mirror. This fall lasted for half a minute. The entire yin-yang mirror directly sank tens of thousands of meters. That's right, tens of thousands of meters. Yang Dingtian knew that he had destroyed the energy circulation balance between the yin-yang mirror and the depths of the Earth's crust. He collected a profound vein essence, which caused the entire yin-yang mirror to collapse tens of thousands of meters. Looking at the dark void that stretched for tens of thousands of miles, there were more than 100 balls of light in the hundreds of thousands of miles. In other words, there were hundreds of profound vein essences in the entire yin-yang mirror, and these hundreds of profound vein essences maintained the energy balance between the yin-yang mirror and the entire world. Once Yang Dingtian collected all these profound vein essences, the consequence would be the collapse of the entire yin-yang mirror. Tens of thousands of miles of the yin-yang mirror would collapse. When the entire yin-yang mirror entered another kind of balance again, Yang Dingtian sat and floated in the air, recovering his profound qi. Next, he would plant this profound vein essence into the soul sword. If collecting the profound vein essence was very troublesome and complicated, then planting the profound vein essence into the profound vein was undoubtedly no less than connecting countless capillaries together. The difficulty and finesse of this task should be second only to carving the black vortex in the ring. After an hour, Yang Dingtian's profound qi energy had completely recovered. He took out his soul sword that was close to the emperor rank and floated in the air. Then, he released the million spirit demon fire and raised the temperature to the extreme. Soon, the entire soul sword that was close to the emperor rank began to melt. Because this was a vacuum, and there was zero gravity. Therefore, the soul sword that was close to the emperor rank after melting was still intact. This was even better. It was more convenient for him to transplant the profound vein essence and carve the entire energy circulation system in the soul sword that was close to the emperor rank. It was equivalent to the meridians of the human body. How difficult was this? It was to use profound chi energy to carve tens of thousands of channels in the interior of a treasured sword. And the largest would not be more than 1/10 of the size of a strand of hair. The smallest could not be described as an object. There was no other way. Who asked the profound vein essence that Yang Dingtian collected to be so awesome? If it was just an ordinary profound vein essence, he only needed to carve a few hundred channels. Yang Dingtian first entered meditation. In his mind, he imagined the structure of this soul sword that was close to the emperor rank. Then he constructed the three-dimensional blueprint of the channel in meditation. Moreover, Queen Poisa helped to perfect it, preserving the most minute structure. This was really an incomparably complicated process. However, it was still not as complicated as carving the dark vortex. Fortunately, time could be slowed down many times in the meditation space. In the meditation space, Yang Dingtian and Queen Poisa did not sleep or rest. It took them more than a month to completely construct the internal meridian system of the entire soul sword. This work was too meticulous, and it was not purely energy. It also involved real matter. Therefore, there were as many as 8 failures along the way. Of course, a month in the meditation space was only a day in reality. Once the design of the internal structure was completed, the rest of the process became simple. Strictly according to the structure in his mind, Yang Dingtian's profound fire energy quickly completed the carving in the soul sword that was close to the emperor rank. This work was actually very similar to the carving of circuit boards on modern Earth. Whoosh 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 whoosh, profound chi energy and profound fire energy quickly flowed in the soul sword that was close to the emperor rank. One must know that these channels were completely connected. The entrance was at the sword hilt, which was the place where the sea spirit crystal would be placed in the future. It was equivalent to the sea of chi, and the entrance was at the tip of the sword. The profound fire energy first carved a main energy meridian in the soul sword. Then it quickly dispersed into 4 energy, and began to carve the branch meridian. Then it divided into 8/16. In the end, it was completely hundreds of energy, operating together, and carving in the soul sword. This was actually very similar to a programming system. First, a framework was designed, and then it would run automatically. Speaking of which, it was all thanks to Yang Dingtian's comprehension of the divine realm. Otherwise, he would have to honestly carve a profound fire energy from the beginning to the end. This would take several months to complete. One must know that at that time, his master, Dongfang Minmi, only had a few hundred channels of the soul sword meridian. It took him 10 days and 10 nights to complete. After Yang Dingtian designed the meridian framework, he used the martial arts civilization code to write a simple energy scroll. Then, the energy scroll would automatically control the circulation of the profound fire and profound chi energy. In this way, Yang Dingtian only needed to be responsible for the output of the profound fire and profound chi. The rest would be completed automatically, and it would be 100% accurate. There would be no error, and there would not be a situation of failure. In this way, Yang Dingtian completed all the tasks that would take several months in just half a day. The carving of the internal meridian system of the soul sword had been completed. Next was the last step, which was to transplant the profound meridian essence into the meridian system of the soul sword. This should be the most difficult and tiring step. Yang Dingtian took a deep breath. He did not rest but wanted to do it in one go. Unfortunately, he could not write an energy scroll to transplant the profound meridian essence. Otherwise, it would be simple. Of course, the scroll was easy to write, but the key was to control the profound chi and pick up each strand of profound meridian essence. This was too difficult and required manpower. The scroll could not be completed. Therefore, Yang Dingtian had to be honest and transplant each strand of profound meridian essence into the soul sword. Closing his eyes, he calmed himself down for a moment and gathered all his energy. Next, Yang Dingtian began the rapid process again. He began to transplant the entire profound meridian essence. First, it was the main meridian. This was very simple. Next, it was the branch meridian. Next, it was the branch meridian. Yang Dingtian's movements were very fast. But no matter how fast he was, it still took 1 or 2 seconds to transplant one strand. And he could not make any mistakes. If he made a mistake, he would have to repeat all the steps in this step. Just like this, time flew by quickly. 2 hours passed, 4 hours passed, a full day and night passed. Yang Dingtian finally transplanted the last strand of profound meridian essence into the soul sword. Finally, he suddenly transplanted the Millennium Owl's demon core into the sword hilt. Whoosh! An ice-cold xianqi swept past. The soul sword that was close to the Emperor grade suddenly froze. It's done, it's done. Yang Dingtian was on the verge of tears. He had spent the entire day and night concentrating his mind and transplanting the strands one by one. He was truly on the verge of collapse. He had never completed such a complicated and terrifying task before. Now it was finally done. Yang Dingtian almost collapsed to the ground, and then slept for a few days and nights. However, he could not sleep yet. At this time, the soul sword was already mostly completed. The only thing missing was the Sea of Qi. But the Millennium Owl's demon core could barely be used as a small sea of Qi. It could barely store some profound Qi. Holding the soul sword that was close to the Emperor grade in his hand, Yang Dingtian could clearly feel the huge changes. First of all, this treasure sword was no longer golden. Instead, it was faintly transparent. Inside, it was flowing with brilliant colors. Next, he had to try and see if he could summon the sword spirit. Yes, it was the sword spirit. Chapter 910. Sword spirit should be the pinnacle of martial arts in this world, and also the most difficult obstacle to overcome in martial arts. From the first bloody black gold or to forging, everything had to be done by oneself. Although the profound vein essence and sea spirit crystal were incomparably precious, but the most difficult part of cultivating a sword spirit was to cultivate a sword spirit that was connected to one's own heart. In layman's terms, it was the soul of the sword. Previously, Yang Dingtian had only smelled it and did not delve into it, so he did not have much understanding of the sword spirit. Why would a sword have a life? Why would it have a soul? Now, Yang Dingtian understood that the foundation of a soul sword was actually the blood of the blacksmith when forging the sword, and the divine sense injected during forging. Sprinkling his blood and injecting his divine sense was like a soul contract. When the young sword and its master's heart were connected for many years, after fighting together, it would possess the most primitive spirituality. Then it would be forged again. This time, the blacksmith would need to use the profound flame to forge, and the profound flame itself had a life, and it would live and die together with its master. Therefore, the second forging process using the profound flame was actually a way to deepen the soul contract, and another way to inject the master's divine sense and will. At this time, the higher the grade of the soul sword forged, the higher the spirituality produced, and the fewer barriers between the soul sword and the master. In the end, the real life was given. Yang Dingtian felt that it was very likely to be the profound vein essence. Previously, almost no one realized that the profound vein essence was a kind of energy life. They all felt that it was a kind of treasure, but did not realize that it was a kind of life, and a life without self-consciousness. When this kind of energy life was transplanted into the sword, the primal chaos divine sense in the sword immediately found a host. It was as if the consciousness had entered a life form, and from then on, it had become an intelligent life form. Therefore, the moment the primal chaos divine sense and the profound vein essence life form combined, the sword spirit had already been born. However, this life form was still very young, just like a baby. To let it learn how to fight, it still needed a long time to patiently teach and countless subtle influences. After that, this sword spirit would then become an independent fighting entity and fight side by side with its master. Yang Dingtian's soul sword should be too outstanding. It was close to the Emperor grade soul sword, so when it was still a young sword, it already had the primal chaos divine sense. Later, a portion of energy from the Naga royalty demon core also flowed into the soul sword. Therefore, Yang Dingtian's sword spirit was much more complex than others, and also much more mature. Although he didn't have any sea spirit crystals now, He only had the Night Owl's demon core, which was barely enough to serve as his sea of qi. And most importantly, it would interfere with the sword spirit. Therefore, almost everyone only started to summon the sword soul after transplanting the sea spirit crystal. But Yang Dingtian was Acho. Yang Dingtian called out. Wah! Immediately, Yang Dingtian received a reaction. This was the primal chaos divine sense in Yang Dingtian's soul sword previously, but it had gone through a long period of deep sleep, and then was suppressed by the Naga royalty's energy. It had already been a long time since Yang Dingtian sensed it. After the injection of the profound vein essence, Achao's primal chaos divine sense immediately had a life form, and instantly became active in the soul sword. Come, shoot out a sword light, let me see? Yang Dingtian said. Wah! This was still the reply of the sword spirit Achao. In Yang Dingtian's mind, he could almost imagine a naked baby lying on the ground, staring at Yang Dingtian with his eyes wide open, expressing, "What are you talking about? I don't understand." Yang Dingtian was speechless, and secretly laughed at himself for being too eager for quick success. Although his sword spirit did not need a long time to cultivate, and had already appeared directly, but, to let it battle, it still needed a long time to learn. Cultivating the sword spirit, there were mainly two aspects. The first aspect, the growth of cultivation. This was the same as humans. They needed to cultivate the qi si, cultivate the profound veins, and cultivate their cultivation. The second aspect was martial techniques and profound skills. That's right, whatever 10,000 swords returned to origin, whatever flying sword, etc., all needed a long time to learn. The first aspect, the growth of cultivation. First of all, the soul sword had to continuously battle and continuously swallow the profound qi energy. But more importantly, it would depend on luck. Because the sea spirit crystal itself was a fossil of the qi si's energy body, it would more or less have some profound qi remaining inside. And if one were to encounter a high-grade sea spirit crystal, then the breakthrough would be by leaps and bounds. If one's luck was heaven-defying, perhaps one would obtain a sea spirit crystal with a very strong profound qi. And the second aspect, martial techniques and profound skills, was completely in the meditation world. The owner and the sword spirit would continuously communicate and continuously learn. Of course, although this kind of learning was not like a parent teaching a baby to talk or walk, but it was not much different. Luckily, the sword spirit and the owner's heart were connected, so when some martial techniques and profound skills were instilled, the sword spirit would naturally learn them. In this world, the number of people who knew sword spirit was pitifully few. Shiman Wuya and Dongfang Minmi, once they unleashed their sword spirit, it would either be one sword toppling cities or 10,000 swords returned to origin. This was something that could not be helped, because there were only a few types of sword spirit that could be cultivated. Just 10,000 swords returned to origin would take around 10 years, so the majority of sword spirit owners had not had the time to learn higher-level soul skills. Acho, try shooting out a sword light. It's very easy. As long as you shoot out the energy in your qi si, it's done. Yang Dingtian used his mind to communicate with the sword spirit Acho. Wah! Sword spirit Acho still only had this one reaction. Acho, can you not keep wah? Yang Dingtian was speechless. Wah wah. Finally understanding Yang Dingtian's wah, the sword spirit Acho was very excited, and immediately shouted wah twice. From the looks of it, although he had a sword spirit now, but it was still very far away from battle. Currently, the sword spirit Acho could only be used to act cute. What was strange was that the energy of the Naga royalty did not have any movement, as if it had already disappeared. Sword spirit, Acho only knew how to act cute, and not battle. Didn't that mean that this sword had no use at all? No. The current sword spirit only did not know how to fight independently, but it could let the owner's soul command the battle. That's right. That meant that Yang Dingtian could directly use his consciousness to control this treasure sword to battle, which meant that Yang Dingtian's consciousness could directly control Acho and obtain all the commanding rights of this treasure sword. If that was the case, what could he accomplish? The most basic thing was the flying sword. Even if Yang Dingtian's profound veins were sealed, Even if Yang Dingtian did not have any profound energy left, he could still control the soul sword to accomplish anything. For example, whoosh! Like a ray of light, this soul sword shot out. Its speed completely exceeded 1,000 meters per second. Under the control of Yang Dingtian's consciousness, this soul sword flew further and further, faster and faster. Finally, it was so fast that the naked eye could not even see it clearly. As for how far it could fly, it would depend on how high the quality of this soul sword was, how pure the sword spirit was, and how strong Yang Dingtian's mental power was. The soul sword flew further and further, and finally flew out over 100 miles. Furthermore, during the entire process, Yang Dingtian did not use any profound energy. It was the soul sword that was using his profound energy. Finally, Yang Dingtian felt that it was somewhat strenuous to control it. 109 miles was the current limit that Yang Dingtian's consciousness could control the soul sword. Of course, as he continued to cultivate, this distance would become further and further. So in the end, from 1,000 miles away, it was completely possible to take someone's head. Yang Dingtian immediately summoned the sword spirit back. After a moment, a ray of light whizzed over and floated in front of him. Pig-slaying swordsmanship, Yang Dingtian ordered, then used his consciousness to control the soul sword, and executed the pig-slaying swordsmanship. Sure enough, without anyone controlling it, this soul sword executed the pig-slaying swordsmanship in the void. The sword move was very sharp, basically no different from Yang Dingtian's personal use. Of course, this was all that could be done now. In the future, he could even control the soul sword to directly release profound skills. Therefore, Devil Sky Splitting Lightning, Flame Blade, and the like. Yang Dingtian could use his consciousness to control the soul sword to release them. Of course, the reason why this soul sword could release Devil Sky Splitting Lightning was entirely because of this Night Owl Demon Core's temporary qi. Zhao Mu's father Zhao Wuji had done this before. In the end, there was no way to suppress the evil aura in the demon core, so he could not control that sword spirit at all. This treasure sword also became a natural weapon for Yang Dingtian's soul sword in front of him. There was no need to worry about the demon core's backlash. Firstly, because of this heaven-defying Xian Meridian essence, A Chao's vitality was extremely strong. In addition to Yang Dingtian's sage-to-be cultivation, suppressing the evil aura of the Millennium Owl's demon core was a matter of minutes. Of course, what was the qi cultivation of Yang Dingtian's soul sword now? Yang Dingtian was not completely sure, but it should depend on this Millennium Owl's demon core. However, this was not a sea spirit crystal after all, not a real qi. Therefore, after the energy in the demon core was depleted, it would be very difficult to absorb Xian Qi and recover Xian Qi. Therefore, to obtain a real sword spirit, a sword spirit that could cultivate on its own and increase its cultivation, it would still require sea spirit crystals. Furthermore, if Yang Dingtian's luck was off the charts, and he was able to obtain a very high-grade sea soul crystal, then Yang Dingtian would be rich. At that time, he would see a miracle in the history of cultivation. At that time, the breakthrough speed of the sword spirit's cultivation would make humans go crazy with jealousy. The key was still to obtain a high-grade sea spirit crystal. Although the soul sword was fun and magical, Yang Dingtian had no choice but to put it down reluctantly. Time was tight. He should go and find the entrance to the Legion of Doom and the Empire of Darkness. He kept the soul sword and flew down to the abyss of nothingness. Chapter 9:11. This abyss of nothingness was almost as deep as Yang Dingtian had imagined. It was almost 2,000 miles long. Yang Dingtian spat out the Xian fire. After an hour, he could faintly see the bottom of the abyss. It was a dark red color. And more importantly, Yang Dingtian was still hundreds of miles away, but he could already feel the extreme heat. Yang Dingtian continued to fly deeper. He discovered that it was getting hotter and hotter. Finally, the temperature around him had already exceeded a few thousand degrees. And at this time, he was still dozens of miles away from that dark red mass. This temperature had already exceeded the temperature of the magma in the second dark domain. As he flew further down, the temperature rose sharply. It actually reached over 10,000 degrees. In order to resist this terrifying temperature, Yang Dingtian had no choice but to release an equivalent amount of ice-cold energy to neutralize it. Therefore, his xianqi dropped with a whoosh. When he had completely landed at the bottom of the abyss, Yang Dingtian's xianqi had already surged out like a tidal wave, because the temperature here had already reached an extremely shocking several tens of thousands of degrees, and some gas had evaporated from this dark red mass. Therefore, it could conduct heat for nearly 100 miles. Even with Yang Dingtian's half-sage cultivation, it was also very difficult to stay in this environment for too long. He carefully observed this dark red high-temperature material. He discovered that it was not magma. It was a kind of solid. It was also not a red-hot metal or a red-hot rock. Under this temperature, it was not realistic for Yang Dingtian to drill his body into it. But he already had a soul sword. Immediately, using his consciousness to control the soul sword, he fiercely stabbed into this dark red mass. Wow, so hard! Even if the soul sword near the Emperor Grade pierced in, it was still somewhat strenuous. The soul sword near the Emperor Grade continued to drill in, and finally, after penetrating nearly 100 miles, the temperature inside had already reached an astonishing several 100,000 degrees. Fortunately, it was a soul sword near the Emperor Grade. Otherwise, any other material would have long been turned into ashes. This temperature was already almost equivalent to the core temperature of an atomic bomb explosion. But Yang Dingtian's soul sword was still not damaged at all. But very quickly, the Ah Cho soul sword had also reached its limit, because Yang Dingtian's consciousness could only control it to a maximum distance of 109 miles. However, there was still no end to this dark red high-temperature crust. It was boundless. Yang Dingtian withdrew his Ah Cho soul sword. Yang Dingtian wouldn't be able to stay in the temperature of a few 100,000 degrees for too long. Therefore, it was impossible for him to enter the dark red Earth's crust personally. Furthermore, Yang Dingtian's profound qi had been greatly depleted, so he had to leave this terrifyingly high-temperature environment to replenish his profound qi. Yang Dingtian flew back to the ice-cold void, then sat cross-legged on the treasured sword, swallowed the profound gathering pill, and began to recover his battle profound qi. After recovering his battle profound qi, Yang Dingtian began to think of other ways to find the so-called entrance. Thus, he released countless vengeful spirits that densely covered the area within 100 miles. In the end, this made Yang Dingtian very surprised. All the vengeful spirits reacted, but their reactions weren't intense, and they all followed a fixed trajectory, trembling in unison. All the wraiths were trembling. Yang Dingtian was instantly puzzled. How could this be? This was clearly a vacuum. There wasn't even gravity here, and there weren't any energy fluctuations. So why were the wraiths trembling in unison? Then Yang Dingtian moved to another direction. He discovered that it was the same. Countless wraiths were all trembling in unison. This was really strange. This was clearly a vacuum. There was clearly zero gravity here. So why were there energy fluctuations? Next, Yang Dingtian thought of countless ways, but he couldn't find any so-called entrance, and couldn't find anything at all. He also couldn't find the reason for the energy fluctuations. In the end, Yang Dingtian decided to use a space door. He used the darkness profound flame to create a space whirlpool, and drew out a black hole, isolating a space. Then, he used a special frequency, special speed, and special attribute profound flame to slam into it. A magnificent space door appeared in the isolated space. Then, Yang Dingtian was completely dumbfounded. On the other side of the space door, there was a mass of distorted and blurry light. But he could vaguely see that in this mass of light, there was a huge castle, and a ferocious and terrifying monster. At this time, he could see its green eyes. And behind it, there were countless green eyes. Through the space door, he could actually see another world? Then should he jump over it? Jumping over it meant danger. Yang Dingtian still decided to jump over, wanting to avoid danger. The moment he jumped over, he immediately turned invisible. Whoosh! Yang Dingtian jumped over the space door. and then turned invisible immediately. Then he was ready to accept the shock, ready to welcome the new world. But nothing. It was still in this abyss of nothingness. What was going on? He had clearly seen another world, so why couldn't he jump over the space door? This was too strange. Next, young Ding Tian tried many times, but in the end, he only jumped around in the abyss and did not enter the new world. If Wu Yoming's theory was correct, then Yang Dingtian's glimpse at the space door was the Empire of Darkness. But why couldn't he jump over Yang Dingtian's space door? Yang Dingtian stroked his fingers, and as he touched them he thought. His ring finger was wearing a space ring. The ring finger of his other hand was wearing a soul ring. The middle finger of his right hand was wearing the Yin-Yang School's leader's token. When he touched the leader's token, Yang Dingtian's mind was suddenly in a trance. It had been a long time since he touched this leader's token, and Yang Dingtian even almost forgot about this ring. Instinctively, Grandmaster Yang Dingtian did not want to touch this ring, because it would remind him of some memories with Dongfang Bingling. Moreover, Yang Dingtian felt that this token was no longer of much use to him. Now that his master had returned, he was once again the head of the Yin-Yang School. However, Yang Dingtian actually forgot to return this token to his master. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian remembered that his master had once said that this token contained some secrets, and that he could only open it after he became the head of the Yin-Yang School. Secrets? What secrets? Instinctively, Yang Dingtian felt that this ring would not be of any use to him. So he had never tried to open it even after his cultivation had reached a high level. Yang Dingtian remembered that the secret his master had mentioned was the secret of this world, the secret of his imprisonment in this world of ice and snow, and not the secret of martial arts. And it was very strange that his master had never mentioned this matter after he was resurrected. It was as if this part of his memory did not exist. Yang Dingtian inserted his celestial qi and took off the ring. This was just an ordinary crystal ring, and he could not tell what kind of crystal it was made of. However, when he inserted his celestial qi, he clearly felt an energy barrier. Of course, this barrier was not big, and it was only the cultivation of a great grandmaster. Yang Dingtian's celestial qi easily broke through this barrier. Puff! After breaking through this barrier, Yang Dingtian's celestial qi suddenly entered the depths of the ring. Swoosh! Then, a ray of light suddenly shot out from the ring and into the dark abyss. Oh, that's right, this ring was made of the highest grade recording crystal. Yang Dingtian remembered that many of the head's token rings in this world were made of recording crystal, and then wrapped in a layer of void stone. And in this recording crystal, there would be the image of the previous head, who would personally say that he would pass the position of head to the next head. In this way, there would be irrefutable evidence, and there would be no need to fear that someone would usurp the throne. Therefore, the head's token ring had authority, and Dongfang Minmi did not use this head's token ring at the critical moment, but recorded his last moments of freedom. In the picture there was a world of ice and snow. Suddenly, as if fire was floating in the sky, light shot in all directions. Then the glaciers in the surrounding dozens of miles instantly melted. In an instant, the hard ice melted down hundreds of miles, thousands of miles deep. At the bottom of the melted ice, a terrifying dark door, like the mouth of hell, was constantly rotating. Although the picture was very blurry, Yang Dingtian could tell at a glance that this dark door was the kind of dark matter that swallowed everything at the bottom of the sea. This dark matter was not afraid of any physical damage, any energy damage. Wu Yuming chose to be swallowed by this dark matter, and perished together with the first-class evil spirit. Before Yang Dingtian could see the dark door under the ice clearly, the whole picture was immediately enveloped by a huge figure. A figure whose entire body was hidden in the darkness, whose face and clothes couldn't be seen, just a black shadow, suddenly appeared in front of Dongfang Minmi. Then, he slammed his palm toward Dongfang Minmi. The picture shook violently, and then it completely ended. Next, Dongfang Minmi was imprisoned under the world of ice and snow. Master did not lie. This was indeed one of the top secrets of this world. Dongfang Minmi had explored the world for his entire life, and finally found this dark door in the world of ice and snow. Yang Dingtian was absolutely sure that this dark door was the entrance to the Empire of Darkness, the entrance to the countless Legion of Doom. This entrance was made of dark matter. Therefore, no one could enter, and no one could come out. Of course, Yang Dingtian could enter because he had the tear of the primordial Naga. Evil ways could also enter and exit. They would definitely be able to open the door of darkness. At that time, the Armageddon Legion would surge out like a tidal wave. Yang Dingtian could not hide the shock in his heart at all. Master Dongfang Minmi had really discovered the ultimate secret of this world. But why had he never said anything after his resurrection? Could it be that he had damaged a lot of his memories when he was annihilated? Or was there another reason? But what could be the reason? Then, Yang Dingtian was once again amazed by Wu Yoming's talent. It was really amazing. He knew nothing about the Legion of Doom and the Empire of Darkness. However, he could infer from the speed of destruction that the Empire of Darkness was under the demon domain and the yin-yang mirror. Of course, he left out the world of ice and snow. Because the world of ice and snow was covered by ice and snow, he could not see the vitality of this continent. However, he also mentioned that the world of ice and snow was also an abnormal continent, and there might be Xian vein essence below. Wu Yuming was really amazing. At that moment, Yang Dingtian immediately left the abyss of nothingness and entered the heavy water layer of the yin-yang mirror. Then he kept rushing up. Soon, he rushed through the heavy water layer, rushed out of the water, and arrived above the yin-yang mirror. At this moment, Yang Dingtian thought, if he dived down from the yin-yang mirror again, could he still reach the abyss of nothingness below? He immediately dived into the heavy water layer again and dived down. As soon as he entered, he immediately entered anti-gravity. Then he kept diving down. After diving for more than 100 miles, he suddenly rushed out of the water and came to the surface of the yin-yang mirror again. There was no way to enter the world under the yin-yang mirror. It was really mysterious. If he wanted to enter the world under the yin-yang mirror again, the only way was to go to the underground whirlpool of the highly poisonous sea area and be sucked into the world under the yin-yang mirror. Yang Dingtian suddenly rose into the air and flew towards the northeast direction. His destination was the world of ice and snow. In less than a day, Yang Dingtian had already reached the sky above the world of ice and snow. It was a world of ice and snow tens of thousands of miles. Next, Yang Dingtian had to find the specific location of the door of darkness. In the image, Yang Dingtian clearly saw that the door of darkness was a few hundred miles in diameter. But where was it exactly? It really could not be seen, because in the image, there was ice and snow everywhere. It was exactly the same, and there was no special reference at all. The only place that could be used as a reference was the place where his master, Dongfang Minmi, was imprisoned. Obviously, that black shadow would not imprison his master within the range of the door of darkness. However, it might not necessarily imprison him too far away. Hence, the door of darkness should not be too far away from the place where his master was imprisoned. It should be within 1,000 miles. Hence, Yang Dingtian used his fastest speed to fly towards the place where his master was imprisoned, which was also the place where he had transmigrated. In less than half a day, Yang Dingtian had already returned to the place where he had transmigrated. Yang Dingtian judged that the door of darkness should be in the southwest of the place where his master was imprisoned, because that black shadow came from the west and easily defeated Dongfang Minmi. Then, when he wanted to imprison him, he would instinctively follow the original route and head towards the northeast. Yang Dingtian arrived at the place where he had transmigrated, which was 500 miles southwest of the place where he had transmigrated, and started to dig through the layer of ice. Using the occult fire to melt the layer of ice was completely silent and incomparably fast. 50 miles, 100 miles, 300 miles, 500 miles. Very quickly, Yang Dingtian melted the ice and went down 1,000 miles under the layer of ice. Then an incomparably huge door of darkness appeared in front of him. He found it, found the entrance to the Empire of Darkness, found the location of countless Legion of Doom. Yang Dingtian's entire body felt a chill down his spine. Chapter 9:12. The door of darkness had a diameter of several hundred miles. It looked like there was nothing there. It was just a mass of darkness, a darkness that devoured everything. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian had a question. Dark matter was an extremely terrifying thing. It would devour everything in a frenzy. However, this door of darkness did not devour or spread. This boundless layer of ice was not directly connected to the door of darkness. In the middle was a layer of void, a void of several thousand meters. This door of darkness was not exquisite. Instead, it was constantly rotating, as if the dark matter was circulating on its own. Evil ways were actually so powerful that they could control the spread of the dark matter. Yang Dingtian turned invisible and arrived in front of the door of darkness. He took a deep breath. Behind this door was very likely the Empire of Darkness, where the Legion of Doom was located. For Yang Dingtian, it was not as simple as a den of wolves or tigers. It was the most dangerous place in the world. However, there were many times when Yang Dingtian didn't have a choice. Whether it was the abyss or hell, he had to jump in. Of course, evil ways might have always thought that no one in the world could pass through this door of darkness. Yang Dingtian took out the eye of Primogenitor Naga from his spatial ring. Yang Dingtian had taken this item from the statue of Primogenitor Naga in the underwater maze. It could directly melt the dark matter. Holding the eye, Yang Dingtian approached the door of darkness. Nothing unexpected happened. A hole was directly melted in the huge door of darkness. Yang Dingtian turned invisible and used the demonic spirit mist cloak flash to rush into the hole. He entered this door of darkness that no one could enter. It was a very strange feeling. It was as if he was traveling through time. Yang Dingtian felt that he was going deeper, deeper, and deeper. After a long time, this feeling of traveling through time ended. Then he was suddenly placed in a completely new world. First of all, after entering, there were no demons or ghosts. There was no danger. They were at the bottom of the sea, surrounded by seawater. There were no signs of the Maori barbarians, nor were there any signs of the Armageddon army. There was only clear seawater. Behind him, the door of darkness was nowhere to be seen. The only thing he could see was endless dark matter. At that moment, Yang Dingtian should be at the edge of the underwater world. All he could see with the naked eye was dark matter. Furthermore, it was constantly spreading and growing, as though it was devouring the underwater world. Yang Dingtian carefully moved forward, but he was still in an invisible state. Even after moving forward for a very long time, they still didn't see anything, let alone the Legion of Doom. Yang Dingtian kept moving forward for over 100 miles. Finally, Yang Dingtian saw a building. This was not a stone building, nor was it a wooden building. It was a coral building. That's right, it was a coral building, a small house, which looked very exquisite and beautiful. Yang Dingtian cautiously approached, but he didn't find anyone, so he cautiously entered the coral hut. What a beautiful house, full of romantic atmosphere. Inside, there was a crystal mirror, seabed flowers, and a small bed made of special aquatic plants. Such a warm and beautiful place. Could it be the Empire of Darkness? Yang Dingtian fell into doubt. At that moment, Yang Dingtian suddenly felt a burst of numbness, and then he was hit by a powerful electric current, and his entire body fell into paralysis. Of course, he has the demon spirit black armor, which can resist a lot of energy damage, but this is the water, where electricity is everywhere. Immediately after, Yang Dingtian felt that it was very strange. He was obviously invisible. Why was there still someone who could see him and attack him? But soon Yang Dingtian understood that the significance of being invisible in the water is not great, because when passing by, there will still be traces left behind. Although this electric current is very powerful, it is completely harmless to Yang Dingtian. However, he pretended to be unconscious from the electric current and directly revealed his original form, floating on the water. Anyway, before entering the door of darkness, he had already changed his appearance. Seeing that Yang Dingtian had fainted, that sneak attacker finally revealed himself. From the cave of the coral house, a delicate figure came out. It turned out to be a pink electric eel, more than 3 meters long. This pink eel was covered in fish. except for the part above the neck that had a human face. It was a very petite and cute girl. She also had 2 very small arms, which were also covered in pink fish scales. She looked very scared and carefully swam up and approached young Dingtian. Pa 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 pa. She suddenly sent out a burst of electric current, making young Dingtian tremble. Probably determined that young Dingtian was completely electrocuted, she swam over and dragged her body, desperately dragging young Dingtian outside. Obviously, she didn't want young Dingtian to die in her house. Young Dingtian woke up, caught her, and then forced her to tell him what happened here. Suddenly, a violent noise came from outside. This pink eel was suddenly scared out of her wits, and immediately drilled into the cave of the coral house, and disappeared without a trace. As for young Dingtian, he immediately entered the state of concealment. Soon, a few black shadows came to a stop. It's the mermaid warriors, it's the mermaid warriors. However, these mermaid warriors are completely different from what young Dingtian imagined. They don't have the beauty of the mermaid clan at all. On the contrary, they are very ferocious. This is a male mermaid warrior, with a human body, but with a fish face. And it's the kind of fish that is similar to the face of a dragon, with long whiskers and deep eye sockets, looking very terrifying. Their human bodies are still covered with scales, and they are more than 3 meters tall. After these mermaid warriors rushed in, they immediately and easily tore down the entire coral house, and then caught the little pink eel. The pink eel kept releasing electric energy, but it didn't cause much damage to these mermaid warriors. One of the mermaid warriors slammed the fork in his hand, and immediately knocked the pink eel unconscious. Then, they took out a huge cage and directly threw the pink eel in, and young Dingtian immediately turned invisible and drilled into the cage. There is no doubt that these mermaid warriors didn't notice young Dingtian at all, and directly left with the cage. Next, young Dingtian witnessed the disaster of the underwater empire with his own eyes. Countless electric eels and giant octopuses were all caught. Countless mermaid warriors captured all the underwater races with combat power. The team of mermaid warriors that young Dingtian followed had a total of more than a dozen, and a total of 30 cages. After the captured prey filled up the 30 cages, they immediately set off towards a place. Then young Dingtian saw a very familiar underwater giant beast. Yes, it's an underwater owl. Exactly the same as young Dingtian's ancient giant beast, Xiao Xiao. The small one was less than a fraction of Xiao Xiao's size. But in this team, the largest ancient giant beast was even bigger than Xiao Xiao. Countless cages were filled with octopuses, electric eels, and all kinds of underwater monsters. A total of hundreds of ancient owls, carrying hundreds of thousands of cages, swam towards a direction. Tens of thousands of mermaid warriors, densely packed, were commanding these hundreds of ancient giant beasts. Suddenly, young Dingtian almost suffocated. The Council of Light, with just one ancient giant beast, had already dominated the entire sea of the human countries. And in front of him, there were hundreds of ancient giant beasts. At this time, young Dingtian was completely sure of where he was. This is the ancient underwater civilization of the Mermaid Empire. In ancient times, it was a power second only to the Naga Empire, and was on par with the Sea Serpent Empire. Like the Sea Serpent clan, it was also the ancestor of the Naga race, so it was proudly preserved. However, before the ancient destruction, the Naga destroyed the entire Sea Serpent Empire, and should have completely destroyed the entire Mermaid Empire. It was unexpected that the Mermaid Empire had survived. Moreover, it actually escaped the ancient destruction. However, it was obvious that the Mermaid Empire was also facing a very terrible situation. The entire underwater world was constantly being devoured by the dark matter. A huge team, majestic and mighty, gathered in one direction. Young Dingtian found that the underwater army around him was increasing, and increasing, and increasing, and increasing. The ancient giant beasts, from hundreds to thousands, to tens of thousands. The mermaid warriors, from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions. And the various underwater monsters that were captured, from millions to tens of millions. Young Dingtian felt dizzy. Hopefully, the largest undersea army in history was not going to attack the human countries. If that was the case, then Yang Dingtian's navy was completely a toy navy. The thousands of warships of the human countries had completely become toys. How many navies did the Mermaid Empire have? There were tens of thousands of terrifying ancient giant beasts of all sizes. The mermaid warriors in front of him were more than 1,000,000. And the various monsters that were captured were more than tens of millions. Such an astronomical number of navies could easily destroy Yang Dingtian's navy 100 times over. If this astronomical number of navies entered the human countries, it would definitely be a complete catastrophe. This astronomical number of navies advanced for a few days and nights. In the end, Yang Dingtian's front, back, left, and right were densely packed, spanning thousands of miles. They were all terrifying underwater armies. Finally, they arrived at their destination, an incomparably huge underwater city. This should be the capital of the Mermaid Empire, Shajing, a huge city spanning thousands of miles. However, in front of this astonishing underwater army, this city was still too small. On the tens of thousands of meters high city wall of Shajing, Yang Dingtian saw two figures. One was the king of the Mermaid Empire. The other was someone Yang Dingtian was extremely familiar with, the leader of the hidden sect, Nihility Piaoling. Of course, she had already become the Queen Devil Queen. The thing that Yang Dingtian was most worried about had happened. The Mermaid Empire and the Evil Ways had formed an alliance. Chapter 913. The Mermaid Empire and the Sea Serpent Empire were both matriarchal societies. Therefore, the Mermaid Empire was also a queen. In fact, compared to the Queen Hai Xian of the Serpent Empire, she was the true queen of the empire. That was because her empire had been passed down since ancient times. Yang Dingtian could not imagine that such a powerful and huge mermaid empire was hidden under the ice and snow of the Devil Domain. Just like Queen Hai Xian, the Mermaid Empire's queen no longer looked like a fish. She looked like a woman. She had long purple hair, and a beauty that could rival Queen Hai Xian's. However, Queen Hai Xian's beauty was very beautiful, while the Mermaid Empire's beauty was very mysterious. However, there was no doubt that in terms of beauty and figure, the Mermaid Empire's queen, Queen Hai Xian, Queen Poisa, and Queen Devil Queen were on the same level. In fact, the Mermaid Empire's queen and Queen Devil Queen's beauty level was even higher than Queen Hai Xian and Queen Poisa's. Of course, this was already a feeling. The reason why the Mermaid Empire's Queen and Devil Queen's beauty was higher was not because of their figures and faces, but because of their aura. Aura was a very mysterious thing. Even in modern Earth, there were some female celebrities who were very beautiful, but after seeing them, they would soon forget them. There were also some female celebrities who were not as beautiful as the former, but they gave people a feeling of radiance. Countless men were willing to be filled with fanciful thoughts when looking at them. This was the aura. Therefore, the Mermaid Queen and the Queen Devil Queen, like Hai Xian and Poisa, had reached the pinnacle of beauty. However, in terms of aura, he was even stronger. Yang Dingtian noticed that there was no water in Shajing, the capital of the Mermaid Empire. That's right, the entire 1,000-mile city was completely covered by a powerful energy barrier. There was no water. The high-level mermaids had all completely transformed into human form, so they would leave the water. This devastatingly beautiful mermaid queen had a head of long purple hair that was almost as long as her dress. Furthermore, she was floating gracefully in the air, making her look even more mysterious and beautiful. In many cases, beauty was a peerless weapon. At least that was the case for now. The countless mermaid warriors around were all captivated by the beauty of the Mermaid Queen. They knelt down in the water, their eyes filled with endless fanaticism and admiration. The Mermaid Queen's voice was gentle but cold. People of the Masha Empire, we should have died more than 10,000 years ago. We should have become a pile of stones. The Mermaid Queen said. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian remembered that in the underwater maze of the Sea Snake Empire, countless sea snakes turned into stones in an instant. It was the Naga's powerful spiritual master, Medusa. Anyone, any creature, as long as they were hit by her gaze, they would turn into stone in an instant. However, the supreme goddess Medusa, At the moment when she wanted to kill us, she felt pity. She betrayed the will of the Naga Empire and gave us the hope of living. Betrayed the Naga Empire? This goddess Medusa. Why would she be merciful at such a crucial time? She did not destroy the Mermaid Empire, of course. It was a betrayal. And in New Naga, Yang Dingtian learned that there was a Naga that betrayed the collective will. She did not choose to commit suicide and turn into a powerful force to create a sealed space in New Naga. Instead, she escaped from the Naga Empire before the Great Nirvana was destroyed. She also took a space ring. Then, was this Naga that betrayed the Mermaid Empire, the same Queen Medusa, that did not exterminate the Mermaid Empire? Was she Shima Ningning's mother? Yang Dingtian could not help but touch his own space ring. This was the only space ring that the Naga Empire had leaked. It originally belonged to Shima Ningning, so this deduction was 90% correct. Shima Ningning was the descendant of the goddess Medusa. The incomparably powerful goddess Medusa was the only Naga that betrayed the Mermaid Empire. Yang Dingtian was speechless. This sister Ningning's background was really not ordinary. She was not ordinary. This feeling was strange. The most powerful boss had been by his side from the beginning. The Mermaid Queen continued her speech. We were lucky to survive, but our entire empire was enveloped and surrounded by the dark matter. There was no space for us to escape. Countless years have passed. Our ancestors, generation after generation, gave everything they had in order to resist the invasion of the dark matter. But they were still unable to stop the arrival of destruction. Our empire shrank from 100,000 miles to 80,000 miles, and then to 50,000 miles. Now, 10,000 years have passed, and our empire is less than 20,000 miles. Our people, because they did not have enough space to live, have shrunk to only 30% of their original size. Following the Mermaid Queen's speech, countless mermaid warriors present shed tears. In these 10,000 years, fear and despair had almost completely enveloped the entire mermaid empire. Countless mermaids could only watch as their land fell inch by inch. Countless mermaids could only watch as their homeland was devoured inch by inch. Their living space was getting smaller and smaller. Everyone knew that the end of the world was coming. Thus, everyone was waiting for the end of the world. We have already exhausted all our efforts, but we are still unable to prevent the end of destruction. The end of the Mermaid Empire is coming again. Today it is today. Our Mermaid Empire's territory is only 19,356 miles. In another 155 days, the end of the world will come. Because when the Mermaid Empire's territory is less than 18,000 miles, the entire energy balance will instantly collapse. The entire Mermaid Empire will instantly collapse. At that time, our Mermaid Empire will be enveloped by the dark matter and undergo a huge destruction. At that time, there will be no survivors. Yang Dingtian was immediately shocked. The fate of the Mermaid Empire was actually only 155 days away. It turned out that the dark matter did not completely devour the Mermaid Empire before it was destroyed. Instead, when the space was less than a certain number, it would cause the energy to tear and destroy. In 155 days, it will be our end. This time has already been calculated more than 1,000 years ago. That day will be our doomsday. Yang Dingtian suddenly felt that whether it was the imprisoned mermaids or mermaids around him, they were all filled with sorrow and despair. When we are faced with despair, when we can only welcome the end of the world, the great goddess Medusa has once again guided us in a new direction. More than 100 years ago, she sent a messenger, a human. This human is the king of humans, the servant of the great queen Medusa, the demon king Wentian. The human king Wentian found a way to break out of the encirclement of the dark matter. Moreover, he has guided us in a new direction. That is the human kingdom, which has hundreds of thousands of miles of empty sea, can become our new home. As the mermaid queen's voice fell, suddenly, the entire king city was in an uproar. Long live, long live, long live! Countless mermaids raised their arms and cheered wildly. Countless mermaids had tears in their eyes. Yang Dingtian could understand their feelings. No one was willing to watch their own destruction. No one was helpless to welcome the end of the world. A new home. A new hope. This made people's blood boil. Just like Yang Dingtian. Didn't he do his best to save the world in order to resist the end of the world? Wasn't it to let the civilization continue? However, at this time, the continuation of the Mermaid Empire's civilization was indeed at the price of the destruction of the human kingdom. The Mermaid Queen continued. More than 100 years ago, I signed a great treaty with the human king Wentian. Our Mermaid Empire will help the human king Wentian take back the throne that belongs to him. The human king Wentian ceded 100,000 miles of sea to our Mermaid Empire as our eternal home. Now it's time to fulfill the treaty. The Mermaid Queen's voice suddenly rose. Suddenly, her hands condensed a pair of energy blades. I order all the warriors of the Mermaid Empire, all the races of the Mermaid Empire to gather and help the Demon King Wentian to take back the human kingdom, sweep away the Tiando League, and fulfill the great treaty. Long live, long live, long live. Kill, kill, kill. Countless mermaids waved the ice blades in their hands crazily. Countless giant beasts let out earth-shattering roars. Only Yang Dingtian felt a chill run down his spine. This was the most powerful navy in history. This was a navy that the human kingdom could not resist at all. Finally, as the representatives of the Demon King Wentian, the Queen Devil Queen, and the Mermaid Queen held their hands high, representing the great treaty between the Mermaid Empire and the Temple of Annihilation. All the troops of the Mermaid Empire begin to reorganize. Once the gate of reincarnation opens, immediately enter the human kingdom. Boom, boom, boom. In response to the Mermaid Queen, tens of millions of sea race troops let out battle cries. In this declaration before the battle, Yang Dingtian understood a few things. The Demon King Wentian's backer was indeed the ancient Naga that defected, the incomparably powerful Medusa. At the same time, she was also Shiman Ningning's mother, so she could be considered his mother-in-law. However, what exactly was the gate of reincarnation that she mentioned? Was it the gate of darkness that Yang Dingtian had entered? One must know that this so-called gate of darkness was named by Yang Dingtian himself. Previously, he had even named this place the Empire of Darkness. There was another doubt, and that was the Legion of Doom formed by the Maori barbarians. Looking at the densely packed army in front of him, there was only the army of the Mermaid Empire. There was also another question. Wentian had come to the Mermaid Empire more than 100 years ago. However, the entire Mermaid Empire was surrounded by darkness. So how did he enter? Yang Dingtian noticed that after the Mermaid Queen finished her declaration, the Queen Devil Queen did not stay, and immediately left. Moreover, she left towards the west, not the gate of darkness that Yang Dingtian had entered. Did that mean that there were other things in the west? Suddenly, Yang Dingtian could not help but have a thought. Could he change the Mermaid Queen's will? This was because the situation was completely different from what he had imagined. First of all, he could confirm that the evil ways did not have their own navy. Instead, they completely relied on the Mermaid Empire's marine army. As for the army, it should be the Legion of Doom of the evil ways. Although Yang Dingtian did not know where the Legion of Doom was, it should not be far away. However, without the Mermaid Empire's navy, the Legion of Doom's army would be useless no matter how strong it was. They would not be able to fly across the vast ocean and attack the human kingdoms. Therefore, if he could stop the alliance between the Mermaid Empire and the evil ways, would it mean that he could eliminate the Legion of Doom's navy? Then, how could he stop the alliance between the Mermaid Empire and the evil ways? Was it possible to do that? Of course, the key was the Mermaid Queen. This was an extremely centralized empire, and the Mermaid Queen could almost decide everything. Moreover, the influence of the evil ways in the Mermaid Empire was very weak. For the Mermaid Queen, the one who saved the Mermaid Empire, Queen Medusa, was the supreme god in her heart. Therefore, Shiman Ningning must have a very high position in the Mermaid Queen's heart. Then, as Shiman Ningning's husband, did Yang Dingtian have some kind of advantage? Or even more shameless? When the Demon King Wentian entered the Mermaid Empire, he claimed that he was the emissary of Queen Medusa. Then perhaps Yang Dingtian had even more reason to do so. Yang Dingtian did not know what token the Demon King Wentian used to prove his identity as the emissary of Queen Medusa. However, all the tokens could not compare to the space ring in Yang Dingtian's hand. This space ring was something that only the 10 most powerful royal families of the Naga Empire had. The one in Yang Dingtian's hand belonged to Queen Medusa. Therefore, this space ring was completely unique and could completely represent Queen Medusa's identity. Then, could Yang Dingtian pretend to be the emissary of Queen Medusa and meet the Queen of the Mermaid Empire? Suddenly, Yang Dingtian could not help but feel restless. Without a doubt, this was a very, very risky move. Once exposed, there was almost no possibility of escape. However, if he succeeded, he could directly turn the tide and save the situation. Yang Dingtian was 100% sure that it was impossible for the current human navies to defeat the sea tribe of the Mermaid Empire. In front of these countless ancient giant beasts, the warships of the Council of Light, no matter how big they were like toys. The risk was very, very high, but it was definitely worth a try. If he failed, he might have the most despicable move. That was if Yang Dingtian could make the Naga, and the Naga go into heat. Then what about the mermaid race? Of course, this was the most despicable move. Yang Dingtian took a deep breath, and immediately went into hiding in the iron cage. Then he quietly waited for the right time to sneak into the Mermaid Empire's capital, Shajing, and secretly meet the Queen of the Mermaid Empire. Hopefully this huge risk was worth it. Chapter 9:14. Lady Death Concubine will be here in half a day. I hope you can hit her body with a bigger lightning bolt. Do you understand? When the Mermaid Queen said this, she didn't show any friendliness. Instead, her eyes were filled with a demonic gaze. It seemed like she wanted to torment the Queen Devil Queen a little. Their relationship wasn't as harmonious as expected. Suddenly, a question appeared in Yang Dingtian's mind. Would the Devil Queen, the dead princess, be able to recognize him? First of all, she had only met Yang Dingtian once. That was 5 or 6 years ago, and it was very short. At that time, Yang Dingtian was very weak and didn't have any special aura. However, Yang Dingtian had the 9 Yangxian veins. Moreover, she had a human aura. Perhaps it would be difficult to hide from the Queen Devil Queen, who was also a human. Moreover, meeting the leader of the evil ways here was a very risky thing to do. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian shook her head and said, "No, I won't do it." Hearing this, the Mermaid Queen's eyes narrowed and said, "Do you know the consequences of disobeying my orders? You are just an animal. You are nothing." Yang Dingtian still shook her head and said, "No, I won't do it. Give me a reason. Otherwise you are dead." The Mermaid Queen said, I will only electrocute you." Yang Dingtian used a very direct and stupid way to express his point of view. The Mermaid Queen's eyes narrowed and she raised her beautiful face and said, "Idiot, I will say it again. In my heart, you are just an animal. Don't have any random thoughts. I can tell you that I don't have a good impression of the Queen Devil Queen. Therefore, I want to see her make a fool of herself. I want to see her vulgar appearance. So will you do it or not?" Then the Mermaid Queen said, "If you don't do it, you will most likely die." Yang Dingtian still said, "I will only electrocute you. You are courting death." The Mermaid Queen's eyes turned cold and she said, "Li Daoji, give him 100 light whips." The great commander of the Mermaid Queen's internal guards, the commander of the Lightning Corps, Li Daoji, walked in. When she was outside in the water, her lower body was a fishtail. Once she entered the royal city, her lower body transformed into a pair of slender and voluptuous legs. Her legs were so sexy that they made people suffocate. Her tight-fitting blue-gold armor only covered her thighs. Her legs were only covered by faintly discernible golden stockings. She was still hot and sexy, yet cold as ice. Her gorgeous face was still filled with a piercing aura. Coupled with her short blue hair, she was like an unsheathed sharp sword. Yes, the corner of Li Daoji's mouth revealed a trace of coldness, then suddenly came in and pulled Yang Dingtian out. The hot and sexy Li Daoji used all her strength to whip Yang Dingtian. That's right, she wanted to beat Yang Dingtian to death. Because the queen was addicted to this lowly demon eel man. Last time, she did not manage to kill this demon eel man. This time, she took the opportunity to kill him. Pa 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 pa. The light whip was a type of energy whip. When it hit a person's body, the skin would not break, and the blood would not flow. But that kind of pain was completely like hell. The damage to the Xian meridians and the body's internal organs was incomparably huge. Yang Dingtian did not use any Xian qi to resist, and took 100 light whips. Moreover, from the beginning to the end, he did not let out a scream. In the end, he almost did not make any sound. He spat out a few mouthfuls of blood, and then lay on the ground dying. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. After the beating, Li Daoji immediately turned and left. She did not care whether Yang Dingtian, this demon eel man, was dead or not, because she was getting more and more worried about the queen's addiction. That afternoon, the Queen Devil Queen once again came to the Mermaid Empire's royal city to inform the queen that the Empire of Darkness's army had begun to assemble. Once they were completely assembled, the gate of reincarnation would be opened. At that time, countless Legion of Doom and Mermaid Empire's army would surge out and engulf the human countries. Moreover, the Queen Devil Queen invited the Queen of Mermaid to go to the Temple of Annihilation in the Infernal Ocean to attend Prince Li Ming's wedding ceremony. At the same time, it was also the ceremony to declare war on the human countries. At night, Yang Dingtian was still lying on the floor of the room, not moving at all. Soon, the door was opened, and a figure floated in and helped Yang Dingtian's body up. With a charming fragrance, the owner of this body was obviously the Queen of Mermaid. She stuffed a pill into Yang Dingtian's mouth and then left. The fragrance lingered in the air. This pill was very miraculous, especially when it healed the injuries of the energy whip. Soon, a warm aura enveloped Yang Dingtian's body, and he immediately felt incomparably comfortable. At this moment, Yang Dingtian had already made up his mind. He would take down the Queen of the Mermaid Empire and cut off an arm of the Legion of Doom, completely losing the Sea Race army. As for what method he would use, he was really sorry. Although it was not open and above board, he was not the one who started it. The next day, Yang Dingtian, who had recovered from his injuries, was once again summoned to the Queen's palace. However, when he entered this time, he was not wearing a mask, and his eyes were not covered. Moreover, the Queen of Mermaid did not ask Yang Dingtian to strike her with lightning. Instead, it was as if she was waiting for someone else. The door was pushed open and Fierce Knife Princess walked in. After entering, she glanced at Yang Dingtian with eyes that were filled with fury and killing intent. She had already used all her strength and wanted to kill this demon eel bastard. How is he still alive? I only asked you to punish him. Why do you want to kill him? The Queen of Mermaid questioned. Fierce Knife Princess said, I don't want to see Her Majesty become addicted to him. The Queen of Mermaid said calmly, Since you made a mistake, you have to be punished. Take off your armor. Instantly, the Fierce Blade Princess's expression changed and she said, Your Majesty, obey my orders. The Queen of Mermaid said, Anyway, as the leader of my internal guards, you can never marry. Your innocence is useless. Give it to him, as your punishment, and also as his compensation. When she said this, the Queen of Mermaid's eyes were filled with madness. At this moment, Yang Dingtian was even more certain that the Queen of Mermaid's heart was really perverted. From asking Yang Dingtian to strike her with lightning, to asking Yang Dingtian to strike the Queen Devil Queen and embarrass the Devil Queen. Now, she actually asked her internal guard leader to give her innocence to a demon eel bastard. This Queen of Mermaid, from the inside out, was filled with the desire to destroy. My queen, do you really want to do this? Fierce Knife Princess gritted her teeth. Yes, I really want to do this. The Queen of Mermaid's eyes were even more fervent, as if she was waiting to watch a show. Yang Dingtian stood up again and said, I won't do it. This is an order. The Queen of Mermaid said, I won't do an order either. I will only strike you. Yang Dingtian walked out again. But soon, he found that his body was completely immobile. He was completely enveloped. Although he could show that he had lowered his cultivation level, the Queen of Mermaid still used the energy field to suppress his body. Saint level. She was really above the saint level. Young Dingtian was shocked. Then, the Queen of Mermaid waved her hand and directly threw young Dingtian to the ground. Then she said to Fierce Knife Princess, "Go carry out your orders, my pure and holy maiden." When she said pure and holy maiden, her words were full of sarcasm. Fierce Knife Princess gritted her teeth and took off her armor. Under the Queen of Mermaid's orders, she used the most direct method to destroy her innocence on young Dingtian's body. Everything was over very quickly. The Queen of Mermaid watched from the side, as if her perverted mind was satisfied. Then she waved her hand and said, "All right, you can all leave." Fierce Knife Princess rushed out immediately and covered her mouth, as if she was trying to suppress the urge to vomit. As for young Dingtian, he regained his ability to move. He looked at the Queen of Mermaid deeply and walked out as well. Back in his room, young Dingtian evaluated the Queen of Mermaid again. He had underestimated her perverted nature. This woman was completely temperamental and had a dark mentality that destroyed everything beautiful. Therefore, she might have attacked the human countries because of this dark mentality. She had been suppressed by the end of the Mermaid Empire for too long and could not see any beautiful countries. The human countries were living so beautifully. She might be very uncomfortable in her heart and have a strong urge to destroy. Suddenly, young Dingtian doubted the necessity of his plan. At this time, young Dingtian could walk around freely in the palace. This huge palace was very empty. There was only the Queen of Mermaid and her inner guards. Young Dingtian climbed to the highest point of the palace and looked to the west. That was the Empire of Darkness where the Queen Devil Queen often came and went. Just as young Dingtian was looking to the west, he suddenly heard a burst of suppressed sobbing. He walked over and saw Fierce Knife Princess at the corner. She was naked and kneeling on the ground, crying bitterly in pain and humiliation. After crying, she began to wipe her scimitar over and over again. Then, she aimed the scimitar at her heart and was about to stab it in. She wanted to commit suicide because she had been defiled by a lowly beast like the devil eel people. So she had to die. Pa! Young Dingtian's lightning struck her scimitar away. Seeing young Dingtian, Fierce Knife Princess's beautiful eyes were filled with infinite hatred. She said coldly, "Don't force me to disobey orders and kill you. Do I have to die just because I'm a devil eel people?" Young Dingtian asked. "Yes," Fierce Knife Princess said. "Just like humans after being defiled by pigs and dogs, shouldn't they die?" Young Dingtian was silent for a long time and said, "I'm sorry." "No, this has nothing to do with you," Fierce Knife Princess said. "This is my fate." Young Dingtian nodded and said, "I know I can't persuade you, right? Can you persuade a human? Can a sea beast persuade a noble mermaid?" Fierce Knife Princess said. "Understood." Young Dingtian suddenly struck down with a bolt of lightning. Pa! The lightning that surpassed the 14th level condensed into a small ball of light and directly knocked Fierce Knife Princess out. Then, he directly carried Fierce Knife Princess back to the Queen of Mermaid and said, "She wanted to commit suicide. I stopped her and knocked her out." The Queen of Mermaid suddenly looked at young Dingtian in shock, and then looked at Fierce Knife Princess with eyes full of hatred and anger. She said, "Since you're so chaste, you're really amazing. Are you mocking me? Very good, very good." The Queen of Mermaid's voice changed a little. She looked at Fierce Knife Princess and said, "In that case, I'll give Luo the devil eel people to you. Letting a noble mermaid become the wife of a lowly devil eel people will be very, very interesting, ha ha." At this time, Fierce Knife Princess had just woken up. After hearing this sentence, she suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The Queen of Mermaid stepped forward and locked the veins of the leader of the internal guards, Fierce Knife Princess, and then smiled evilly at young Dingtian. She said, "From now on she's completely yours. You can do whatever you want." "I'll only electrocute you," young Dingtian said. "Ignorant thing." The Queen of Mermaid sneered, then waved her hand and pushed young Dingtian and Fierce Knife Princess out. Fierce Knife Princess, whose veins were locked, was placed in her room by young Dingtian. She couldn't move at all, and couldn't even commit suicide. Therefore, young Dingtian would be able to do anything he wanted. However, of course, he didn't do anything. Instead, he gave her a bath, and changed her into a comfortable dress. This was the first time Fierce Knife Princess wore a dress instead of an armor. Of course, Fierce Knife Princess had short hair, so wearing a dress was a little strange. It also destroyed her unruly aura. After helping her put on her clothes, Yang Dingtian personally cooked a delicious meal and fed it to Fierce Knife Princess. Fierce Knife Princess didn't even have the strength to stop Yang Dingtian and could only let him stuff the food into her mouth. After taking a bite, she was stunned. It was actually a delicacy that she had never eaten before. In the next 2 days, Yang Dingtian took care of her very gently, so much so that the ice in Fierce Knife Princess's beautiful eyes melted a little. The Queen of Mermaid didn't summon him, so other than taking care of Fierce Knife Princess, he spent most of his time meditating and drawing complicated things on a piece of fish skin paper. At this time, Yang Dingtian's plan in the Mermaid Empire was getting deeper and deeper. Now, he didn't just want to destroy the alliance between the Mermaid Empire and the evil ways. He even wanted to make the entire Mermaid Empire his ally and deal a fatal blow to the evil ways Legion of Doom. Because he found out again, the Queen of Mermaid's paranoia and perversion might not be a bad thing, because such a person didn't care about the consequences and only cared about what she liked. Moreover, she wasn't very friendly to the Queen Devil Queen. If he could take her down, then everything would be twice the result with half the effort. Not only would he directly cut off the Legion of Doom's navy, but on the contrary, Yang Dingtian would have an incomparably powerful force in his hands. The best result would be when the Legion of Doom started the war. The Mermaid Empire would directly betray them and deal a fatal blow. That scene would be too beautiful. He believed that it would make the evil ways suffer so much that they would wish they were dead. Of course, the only prerequisite for all of this was to take down the Queen of Mermaid. This queen's personality was a bit perverted. Therefore, Yang Dingtian only had one mission now, and that was to conquer her. Although she was really crazy and neurotic, Yang Dingtian really needed a saint-level powerhouse like her. And the Fierce Knife Princess in front of him might be able to help him. Conquering the Queen of Mermaid, conquering the Mermaid Empire. Perhaps it would start with this Fierce Knife Princess in front of him. However, at this moment, Fierce Knife Princess suddenly opened her eyes and looked at Yang Dingtian. She said, "You're not the demon eel. Who are you?" Yang Dingtian couldn't help but be stunned. He didn't feel that there were any flaws at all. How did she recognize him? These people's intuition was actually so sharp. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. For mobile users, please go to Chidian.com to read. Chapter 9:15. Yang Dingtian let out a long sigh of relief, but then he became nervous again. The Mermaid Queen's summon meant that the battle was about to begin. That's right, this was a battle. Even though it looked very erotic, and was actually very erotic, it was still a battle. But then the Mermaid Queen said, "Bring her here too." The Mermaid Queen was referring to as Princess Lee of the Dagger. But it was strange that she said her, and didn't call out her name. She summoned him to attack her with lightning. What did it have to do with Princess Lee of the Dagger? Could it be that they were going to have a threesome? This absurd thought only flashed past Yang Dingtian's mind for a moment. Princess Lee of the Dagger's beautiful face turned pale, and then red. She whispered, "Your Majesty, what do you want to do?" Yang Dingtian said, "I don't know." Princess Lee of the Dagger's breathing became heavy. "Don't even think about doing anything to me." Yang Dingtian carried her and walked towards the Mermaid Queen's palace. Princess Lee of the Dagger didn't have any strength now. Her whole body was locked up and she couldn't walk at all. So Yang Dingtian had to take care of her every day, including eating and bathing, and even more intimate things. It was because of this that Princess Lee of the Dagger couldn't stop herself from falling. Soon enough, Yang Dingtian carried the sharp blade concubine and entered the Mermaid Queen's bedroom. She still had her back to Yang Dingtian, standing under the window. The curves of the mountains were still beautiful and breathtaking. "Wow, what a loving couple," the Mermaid Queen said in a hoarse voice. Princess Lee of the Dagger Do you still have the aura of the female leader of the internal guards? Princess Li of the Dagger trembled. Your Majesty, that's because my cultivation is locked up. I can't even lift a finger. Is that so? The Mermaid Queen said. But what about your eyebrows? Your eyes? Your lips? Your shoulders? Princess Li of the Dagger said. Your Majesty, is there a problem with these parts of my body? The Mermaid Queen said. Previously, your eyebrows were always tense like a small knife. But now it had softened, as delicate as a painting. Previously, your eyes were only slightly narrowed. You maintained a focused gaze at all times and maintained vigilance. But now, your eyes are completely lazy, and even have a hint of shyness. In the past, your mouth had always been tight, as if the muscles at the corners of your mouth were also frozen. Therefore, although your face was very beautiful, it was as hard as a knife. Right now, your beautiful little mouth is already a little curved. Even though you don't want to smile, your heart is already smiling. You are so sweet that you can't help but overflow. And your shoulders, they were always in a state of battle before, but now they are completely dependent on you. After hearing what the Mermaid Queen had to say, not only was Fierce Knife Princess shocked, but even young Dingtian was shocked. The Fierce Knife concubine felt that her entire body was indeed as the Mermaid Queen had said. The Mermaid Queen's insight was really amazing. Finally, the Mermaid Queen turned around and looked at Fierce Knife Princess. Looking at the corners of your eyes, everyone knows that you have fallen and are ready to let this man take over your everything at any moment. Look at your hair. It is already starting to cover up the domineering short hair. You are already preparing to grow it out. Fierce Knife Princess suddenly felt uneasy and wanted to untie her hair. The Mermaid Queen looked into Fierce Knife Princess' eyes and said, Then tell me now, my leader of the internal guards, have you fallen for this demon eel beside you? You have to tell the truth, okay? Suddenly, Fierce Knife Princess fell into a struggle and hesitation. It was not that she did not dare to admit it, but the Mermaid Queen in front of her was completely temperamental. Any answer she gave would be risky. However, Fierce Knife Princess was not a very scheming girl. After a short consideration, she could only choose to tell the truth. She nodded and said, Yes, Your Majesty, please punish me. Okay, I understand, the Mermaid Queen said coquettishly. Then what about Surimo Luo? Didn't you say that you only electrocuted me? Once he spoke, Li Daoji immediately looked at Yang Dingtian. If Yang Dingtian said yes, it would mean that he was loyal to the Mermaid Queen, which would undoubtedly be a huge blow to Fierce Knife Princess. However, if he said no, the consequences would be very frightening. Therefore, he chose to remain silent. The Mermaid Queen did not have much of a reaction to Yang Dingtian's silence. Instead, she smiled and said, Fierce Knife Princess, aren't you the most disgusted by the demon eel people and think that they are livestock? Why would you fall for this male beside you? This is really strange. When the Mermaid Queen said this, it seemed as if she was talking to Fierce Knife Princess, but her eyes were fixed on Yang Dingtian. Fierce Knife Princess was not a powerful woman. She was immediately made nervous by the Mermaid Queen and could not speak at all. At this moment, if Yang Dingtian was smarter, he would directly admit that he was not a demon eel person. Of course, if he was a little more stupid, he would also directly admit that he was not a demon eel person. Therefore, Yang Dingtian remained silent. Of course, I don't care about the internal structure of a demon eel person's body at all, nor have I checked it. The Mermaid Queen smiled and said, Of course, I can also see that you are deliberately revealing that you are not a demon eel person. You know that I don't care about your bloodline or identity. It would be better if you are not a demon eel person. After all, everyone hates livestock, right? Yang Dingtian remained silent. At this moment, not speaking was the wisest choice. Then tell me, are you a spy placed here by the evil ways? The Mermaid Queen asked. No, Yang Dingtian said. Very smart response, the Mermaid Queen said. The Mermaid Queen said, If you remain silent to all the questions before, then your next answer will sound especially sincere. Yang Dingtian continued to remain silent. Oh, you are silent to my questions. That means that you don't care about my doubts. The Mermaid Queen said. That means that there is an even more shocking truth, enough to crush my doubts. Young Dingtian continued to remain silent. The Mermaid Queen said, Sir, do you have anything you want to say to me? For example, who are you? What is your purpose? Young Dingtian said, Before I say anything, can I ask you a few questions? Of course, it is up to you whether you want to answer or not. Wow. The Mermaid Queen laughed. You are an extremely powerful opponent. Since you have already started the battle, let's begin. Oh right, you can only ask one question. 2, is that okay? Of course, in the end it is still 1. Young Dingtian said. Okay. The Mermaid Queen said. Young Dingtian asked, Wentian, how long have you been in the Mermaid Empire? What token did he bring to prove that he is the envoy of Queen Medusa? The Mermaid Queen's beautiful eyes trembled, and she instinctively touched her arm. Then she smiled and said, He stayed for quite a long time. He brought Queen Medusa's absolute token. Of course, I can't tell you what it is. Instantly, young Dingtian sank into a bitter expression. The Mermaid Queen smiled and said, Did you get the answer you wanted? Young Dingtian nodded and said, I got it. Oh, what answer? The Mermaid Queen asked. Young Dingtian said, An answer that is not optimistic. Oh, tell me. The Mermaid Queen said. Young Dingtian said, When I asked you these 2 questions, the first thing that appeared in your eyes was not respect and worship for Queen Medusa, but rather, you seem to have sunk into a memory. Furthermore, he stayed for quite a long time. I know him very well, and he is a very charismatic man. And you're so lonely, so, to me, this is a rather bitter result. The Mermaid Queen said, Are you saying that I fell in love with the Demon King Wentian? I don't know, maybe. Young Dingtian said. No wonder you made me wear a mask every time I electrocuted you. Is the person on the mask him? The Mermaid Queen smiled and did not answer. Young Dingtian said, He electrocuted you often? The Mermaid Queen shook her head and said, No, in front of him. I am a reserved goddess. Then the Mermaid Queen said, Okay, can you answer my question now? Young Dingtian nodded and said, Of course, the situation can't get any worse. You don't need to know who I am, but my goal is to conquer you. Oh, so direct. The Mermaid Queen said, But I like this kind of directness. Then, you represent the human countries, right? Young Dingtian continued to be silent. Sometimes you are so daring that it's laughable, but sometimes you are so cautious that it's scary, little man. The Mermaid Queen said, How strange, no one can enter the Mermaid Empire. Why can you enter? Fate's arrangement. Young Dingtian said, Fine, I regretted it the moment I said that. What a hateful tone. I think so too. The Mermaid Queen said, Since Wentian can enter, you can naturally enter as well. Then the Mermaid Queen said, You are from the human countries, and I am allied with the evil ways. Doesn't that mean that a calamity is about to befall you? Little man. Now, are you still thinking of conquering me? After all, my heart already belongs to someone. Young Dingtian nodded. I am still preparing to conquer you. I won't give up. The Mermaid Queen covered her mouth and laughed. Oh, why do you think I would fall in love with someone else? Are you more charming than Wentian? No, of course not. Young Dingtian continued. In truth, I have 2 reasons why I can conquer you. The Mermaid Queen's beautiful eyes flashed with curiosity. Tell me, what are the 2 reasons? She even sat down and widened her beautiful eyes, acting like a little girl filled with curiosity. Chapter 916. The first reason is that since the Demon King Wentian could enter the Mermaid Empire, I can enter as well, Young Dingtian said. The Mermaid Queen clapped her hands. What an impressive reason. Moreover, the first time born, the second time sleeping, right? Are you trying to tell me that every time a human enters, it's filled with a sense of destiny? Following which, the Mermaid Queen continued. Now, I can't wait to hear the second reason. Don't disappoint me. Young Dingtian said. 100 years have already passed. Memories and emotions are very different. The moment these words came out, the indifferent expression on the Mermaid Queen's face disappeared. Her beautiful eyes trembled slightly. Then, she looked at Young Dingtian. Are you willing to tell me the second reason? Yang Dingtian said. He stayed in the Mermaid Empire for half a year. He must have brought you incomparably happy times. Because you were completely trapped by the dark matter, and the apocalypse was gradually approaching. The entire Mermaid Empire must have been incomparably dispirited, and had nothing to do. He came from another world, and was completely different from the people you met. He could instantly attract you. After that, you spent every moment together. You read books together, played chess together, played cards together, and chatted together. The half a year he was there was the happiest half a year of your life. The Mermaid Queen's beautiful eyes fell into a perplexed state. She once again entered the incomparably happy memories. Yang Dingtian continued. Although you were together all day long, and even slept in the same room at night, you definitely didn't do anything intimate. Oh, why? The Mermaid Queen smiled. Yang Dingtian said, First Wentian. He definitely left behind a huge suspense, causing you to be filled with yearning for a reunion. Once an intimate relationship occurred, the suspense would weaken and the yearning for a reunion would fade. You must have left when you were filled with the best feelings for him. The Mermaid Queen smiled and asked, Why do you have such a detailed guess about our interactions? It's as if you have seen it before. Yang Dingtian sighed. Because I had the exact same experience. Her status is almost exactly the same as yours, maybe even higher than yours. Of course, she is also lonelier than you. In particular, she was also imprisoned in a special environment for 10,000 years. The Mermaid Queen said, This won't prove anything. People are different. Just because you didn't do it doesn't mean we didn't. Yang Dingtian continued. Most importantly, it's impossible for him to have any intimate relationship with you, because he can't make you fall in love with him. You're not even a complete woman. Hearing this, the Mermaid Queen's beautiful face suddenly changed. She stared coldly at Li Daoji and said, Did you tell him? No, I guessed it, Yang Dingtian said. The Mermaid Queen replied, You guessed it? You better be able to convince me with your reason. Otherwise Li Daoji will die. Yang Dingtian said, You were raised as the next generation of Naga. You will live longer than the Mermaid clan. So you became the queen of the Mermaid Empire. Your mission is to borrow the seed of a human and give birth to the demigod Naga. But there are very few humans who can make a mermaid fall in love with you. And you seem to be imprisoned in your human form, unable to return to your mermaid form. So your tool to give birth is always closed, which makes you suspect that you are not complete. And this kind of confinement makes the whole body's circulation abnormal, which makes a lot of things unable to be released. So some kind of hormone or energy in your body is constantly accumulating. So, your temperament is becoming more and more twisted. You let me hit you with lightning to help you release some of the accumulated things in your body. But that can only solve the symptoms, not the root cause. The Mermaid Queen immediately stopped smiling and said slowly, Don't you think you know too much? Yang Dingtian said straightforwardly, In this world, there are very few humans who can make you fall in love. Evil ways have tried all kinds of methods, but to no avail. And I am the only human who can make you fall in love with me. As soon as he said this, the Mermaid Queen's body trembled, and her beautiful eyes lit up. She said, Is this true? Of course, Yang Dingtian said. In fact, I have already given birth to 2 demigod descendants. When he said this, Yang Dingtian's face was full of helplessness, but it was also full of love. Then Yang Dingtian said, Of course I hope that when they grow up, they will be ordinary people. But don't be too heaven-defying, and don't bring disaster to this world. The Mermaid Queen walked over slowly and approached Yang Dingtian. She then took a whiff of his scent. Sure enough, her heart was beating faster, and her whole body was restless. Her body temperature was rising. Then the Mermaid Queen said, So you want to conquer me and make me your woman? Break the alliance with evil ways and stand on your side, right? Yes, it's best if you can change sides and give the Legion of Doom a fatal blow, Yang Dingtian said. Wow, what a fierce little boy, the Mermaid Queen said. Then what about my Mermaid Empire? Yang Dingtian said, I am the ruler of the human countries, and I have already unified the entire Vitality continent. I can give you a sea in the south, west and east, more than 100,000 miles of sea. The Mermaid Queen said, "Do you know that our mermaid race is much stronger than humans, and our lifespan is also much longer? Aren't you afraid that we will completely destroy humans and take over the world?" Yang Dingtian said, "That is a matter for the future. At least when I am here, this kind of thing will not happen. Of course, in the end, I will think of a way to prevent the mermaid race from leaving the seabed. Once they leave the seabed, they will not be able to survive. This way, the two races will live in harmony." The Mermaid Queen said, "Also, you want me to marry you? Let the Mermaid Empire and the human empires be united through marriage, and you will also become the ruler of the Mermaid Empire, right?" Yang Dingtian said, "Yes, this is the best choice for us." The Mermaid Queen smiled. "But you also know that I love Wentian. You little boy, don't tell me you have a way to steal my heart from him?" "I do," Yang Dingtian said. The Mermaid Queen revealed a mocking smile. "Tell me about it? What method? In my eyes, your charm is far too inferior to his. You have to know that I am jealous of the dead concubine, which is why I have been mocking her time and time again. Because I am jealous. Then tell me, your charm is far inferior to his. What method do you have to make me fall in love with someone else?" Yang Dingtian said, "There is a saying that we can talk about it in the future." The Mermaid Queen laughed, then said, "That is indeed a good method. But if I don't let you, do you have a way to force me?" Yang Dingtian said, "You won't be able to find a second person. In this world, only I can make you fall in love, and make you bear children." The Mermaid Queen burst into laughter again, but her expression soon turned desolate. "Little man, your suggestion is very tempting, but I promised him." "That's right, I promised him." The Mermaid Queen sighed. "I promised to give him a chance. If he can make me fall in love, I will become his woman. I promised him that I will wait for him to come back." Yang Dingtian said bitterly, Do you really love him that much?" The Mermaid Queen said, "It can't be considered an unforgettable love, but it can be considered that my heart belongs to someone else. I promised him. Of course, if your charm is strong enough to suffocate me and make me unable to control myself, then I will definitely fall in love with someone else. Unfortunately, your charm is not at that level, right? A man's charm is often tempered by pain," Yang Dingtian said. "So, I would rather not have this charm than to be tortured by pain." "Then there is no other way," the Mermaid Queen said. "Your body does have the power to make me fall in love, but your temperament and charm are not enough to make me fall in love with you." Yang Dingtian was silent for a moment, then said, "What if I am the son-in-law of your goddess Medusa? Her daughter is my wife. Compared to the demon king Wentian, my relationship with Medusa is closer." The Mermaid Queen was shocked. "Impossible, impossible." Yang Dingtian said, "That is the truth. You should know what the most important token to represent Queen Medusa is, right? Of course you might not know. After all, this is something that happened more than 10,000 years ago. It is related to the top secret of the Naga Empire, the spatial ring." The Mermaid Queen said directly. Yang Dingtian was stunned. How did you know?" The Mermaid Queen said, "Because the token Wentian brought is the spatial ring." Yang Dingtian was completely stunned. How is this possible? How could the spatial ring be with Wentian?" The Mermaid Queen said, "Of course, from the start to the end, Wentian could only use it as a token. He kept it in an energy jade box and couldn't touch it, couldn't use it, and had to return it." Yang Dingtian said, "Is the spatial ring the only token of Goddess Medusa?" "Yes," the Mermaid Queen said. "If not, I wouldn't believe that he is the emissary of Goddess Medusa." Yang Dingtian took in a deep breath and injected his energy into the spatial ring. Instantly, the spatial ring appeared on his finger. "Let me borrow it," Yang Dingtian said. Subsequently, he removed a golden hairpin from her hair and threw it into his spatial ring. Instantly, the golden hairpin disappeared into the spatial ring. The Mermaid Queen was completely stunned. She gave the spatial ring to you?" "Yes, I've had it for a few years," Yang Dingtian said. "Furthermore, I can give it to you." After speaking, Yang Dingtian knelt down on one knee and raised the spatial ring he created himself. Your Majesty, may I ask if you will marry me? In an instant, the mermaid queen's body trembled violently, and her temperature rose rapidly. Chapter 9:17. But soon, the blush gradually disappeared from the mermaid queen's face. The mermaid queen said, How was it? I acted well, didn't I? The feeling of being shy and moved when someone proposed to me was very accurate. Yang Dingtian felt a chill in his heart. The mermaid queen smiled, but her eyes were cold. Little man, you're lying. You're lying about Medusa. Yang Dingtian frowned. The mermaid queen said, Although I have never really met Medusa, I am completely aware of her position. As a traitor of the Naga Empire, and the savior of the Mermaid Empire, she must be on the opposite side of you. Your name is Yang Dingtian, right? Hearing the mermaid queen call out his name, Yang Dingtian was not too surprised. The mermaid queen said, Of course, I just remembered your name. The Queen Devil Queen once mentioned you to me. She said that you are the true heir of the Nihility clan, and the true successor of Nihility Piaoyan, right? Yang Dingtian nodded. He did tell Nihility Piao Ling about this matter, including his pig-killing swordsmanship. The mermaid queen continued. At that time, the Mermaid Empire was instigated by Nihility Piaoyan, so they made an extremely crazy move. They destroyed the Sea Serpent Empire and the Mermaid Empire, and sacrificed all the Naga people in exchange for the continuation of New Naga and the entire Chaos world. Medusa was pregnant at that time. According to Nihility Piaoyan's plan of sacrificing all the Naga Empire in exchange for rebirth, the child in her belly would have been destroyed before it could see the world. Therefore, she chose to defect and steal the interspatial ring. Yang Dingtian trembled. At this time, he completely understood why Medusa chose to defect. Because she was already pregnant. But was the child in her belly Shima Ningning's? It didn't seem like it, because Sister Ningning didn't look that old, although she was very gentle and mature. However, her heart was already very young. She didn't look like the Queen Lan Chi in New Naga at all. Because of her years of loneliness, her mentality was very calm. The mermaid queen said, Therefore, the positions of Queen Medusa and Shiwu Piaoyan are completely opposite, or even hostile. Therefore, her position is naturally at odds with yours, right? Yang Dingtian didn't say anything. The mermaid queen was right. Yang Dingtian could not help but ask. At that time, Shiwu Piaoyan stayed in the Mermaid Empire for more than 10 years. Less than 3 years after Shiwu Piaoyan's arrival, the Naga Empire imposed a ban on childbirth. Why was Queen Medusa pregnant on the eve of the Naga's sacrifice? This doesn't make sense. The mermaid queen said, This was an accidental pregnancy. No one knows who the child's father is, except for goddess Medusa herself. Then, the mermaid queen smiled and said, However, this has nothing to do with the matter between us. Since Queen Medusa's position is at odds with yours, and she chose to support the demon king Wentian, then don't you think I should stand on goddess Medusa's side? She is our savior. Yang Dingtian didn't know how to answer. The mermaid queen continued. Moreover, believe me, your human country has no chance of winning. You haven't seen how powerful the Empire of Darkness's Legion of Doom is. You have no chance of winning. Moreover, the Empire of Darkness has completely blocked the Mermaid Empire's exit from the dark matter dimension. Not to mention, Wentian has already controlled several planes. He is destined to be the winner. Do you think I can stand on your side? Then, the light in the mermaid queen's hand condensed into a scale. She placed a weight on the left and said, This is my love for Wentian. It can be considered as a weight. Then, she placed a second weight on the scale and said, This is the will of goddess Medusa. I can't go against it. She placed a third weight on the scale and said, You and your human country are too weak. Wentian has controlled several planes. I want to stand on the side of the victor. Finally, she picked up another weight and said, You said before that I'm a twisted and perverted life form. You are right. I'm filled with the urge to destroy the human country. Hence, this is the fourth weight. The left side of the scale represented opposing Yang Dingtian. There were a total of 4 weights. The mermaid queen picked up a weight and placed it on the right side of the scale. You are able to make me go into estrus and give birth to my offspring. This can be considered as a weight. 1 against 4, the scale was completely tilted. The mermaid queen smiled. So even a fool would know how to choose, right? Yang Dingtian said. You are not a fool, but you are a madwoman, right? The mermaid queen smiled. Correct, I'm a madwoman. Hence, I'm willing to give you a chance. Let me become your woman. Evil ways. Yang Dingtian didn't feel any joy. Instead, he was filled with wariness. Please speak. The mermaid queen pulled out a sharp sword and placed it in Yang Dingtian's hand. My dear, I'm a very possessive woman. I can't bear to see others being lovey-dovey. Hence, if you kill Princess Li Dao, I'll give you a chance to conquer me. How about it? Yang Dingtian's facial muscles twitched violently. As expected, things weren't so simple. After tens of thousands of years of distortion, the mermaid queen had already become a madwoman. She had even begun to enjoy this kind of distortion and madness. She no longer had the same desire and sense of mission as before. The mermaid queen hooked her arms around Yang Dingtian's neck and breathed her fragrant breath into Yang Dingtian's nose. My dear, you can only choose one woman. If you want me, she'll die. If you want her, you won't have me. Instantly, Princess Li of the Dagger's face turned pale, and her entire body trembled. She was in pain from the mermaid queen's viciousness and heartlessness. At the same time, she was terrified of Yang Dingtian's choice. The mermaid queen was the object of her lifelong loyalty. She had never thought of betraying her. However, the mermaid queen had abandoned her like a pair of worn-out shoes. Furthermore, she was going to sacrifice her in such a ridiculous and meaningless way. Choose, the mermaid queen said softly. My dear, kill her and I'll be yours. No, I'll do it myself. Princess Li Dao finally broke down. She cried out loud and wanted to snatch the sword and commit suicide in front of the two of them. Slap. Yang Dingtian's reply was a slap in the face. Of course, it wasn't a slap on Princess Li Dao's face. It was a slap on the mermaid queen's face. Bitch, crazy woman, Yang Dingtian said coldly. Oh, after the mermaid queen was slapped, she cried out exaggeratedly and said, Your slap made me feel so good. Do it again. Slap. Yang Dingtian gave him another slap abruptly. The mermaid queen's mouth was bleeding. She licked her lips and said, That's right. Coldness is more likable. Then, the mermaid queen walked over and used her saint-level cultivation to lock Yang Dingtian's Xian meridians and sealed all of his cultivation. Furthermore, layers upon layers of energy fields completely imprisoned him. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian couldn't even move a finger. Finally, the mermaid queen carried one in each hand and threw Yang Dingtian and Li Daoji into his room. Then, she took out a dagger and placed it in Li Daoji's hand. She spoke in a tender voice. Li Daoji, do you love this human enough? Then you better commit suicide. You better die in front of him. Otherwise, I will hand him over to the evil Dao. By then your lover, Yang Dingtian, would probably beg for death. But he wouldn't be able to. If you are willing to commit suicide, I won't do that. I might even consider being conquered by him. In order to save him, you better commit suicide. After saying that, the mermaid queen walked out and closed the door. Her back view was incomparably beautiful and seductive. She was even more beautiful than Queen Hai Exan and Queen Poisa. However, in Yang Dingtian's heart, she was more poisonous than the most poisonous snake. She shouldn't be the mermaid queen. She should be the viper queen. In the room, only Yang Dingtian and Princess Li Dao were left. Yang Dingtian couldn't move at all. He shouted in his heart, Dark green dragon, quickly break through my celestial chi shackles. Quickly. However, the dark green dragon was indifferent. It was a very selfish creature. Unless Yang Dingtian was about to die, it wouldn't make a move. At this moment, Princess Li Dao slowly picked up the dagger. Her beautiful eyes no longer concealed her feelings for Yang Dingtian. She didn't say anything. She only stared at Yang Dingtian. Then, she placed the dagger on her neck and prepared to commit suicide. Although she knew that the mermaid queen was crazy, and her words didn't count. However, she was still willing to give it a try. She was willing to use her life in exchange for Yang Dingtian's safety. I won't regret it. Princess Li Dao's tears kept falling. At this moment, Queen Devil Queen flapped her wings and slowly landed in the capital of the Mermaid Empire. The Mermaid Queen looked at her with eyes full of sarcasm and hostility. Your Majesty Devil Queen, let me tell you a piece of good news. The Yang Dingtian you've been searching for has fallen into my hands. The beautiful eyes of the Demon Queen, Dead Princess, trembled as she said, Really? Of course, the Mermaid Queen said. And I can even hand him over to you. You can bring him to the Temple of Annihilation. You can kill him or cut him up as you wish. Devil Queen said, Your Majesty. The Mermaid Queen said, But he's the only human who can give birth to my offspring. I really can't bear to part with him. So, I want to make a deal. How about it? Queen Devil Queen's expression changed slightly. Please speak. The Mermaid Queen said, I want to monopolize the Demon King Wentian. So you're too much of a hindrance. How about this, you let Yang Dingtian take care of you. Without your innocence, you won't be able to snatch Wentian from him. How about it? When she said this, the Devil Queen's expression changed greatly. The Mermaid Queen laughed. Yang Dingtian will either take care of you or me. Once he takes care of me, I'll become his woman. I'll change sides. That's right, this was a completely crazy woman. Chapter 9:18. The Queen Devil Queen did not expect to face such a problem the moment she arrived at the Mermaid Empire. However, she was the Queen Devil Queen, and not the Nihility Piaoling. Half of her body was the primordial evil spirit. The Devil Queen stared at the Mermaid Queen coldly and said, Are you sure you want to do this? The Mermaid Queen nodded and said, Yes, I want to do this. The Queen Devil Queen sneered and said, Then as you wish. In the room, the fierce blade concubine was reluctant, but she was determined to use the dagger to slit her own neck. She was about to die. As for Yang Dingtian, he couldn't even move a single finger on his body. He could see everything, but he could not stop it. He was really anxious. He wanted to use the dark mystic flame to dissolve the seal on his energy sea. However, because the Mermaid Queen's energy sealed his energy sea, he could not summon the dark mystic flame even if he wanted to. Dragon, hurry up and break free from my shackles. Hurry up, hurry up. Yang Dingtian roared in his heart. However, the dark green dragon did not react at all. He wanted to stop it, but he could not say a word. He could see and hear everything, but he could not move an inch. Therefore, he could only watch as Li Dao concubine committed suicide, watching as she died. If he let her die, Yang Dingtian would not be able to forgive himself, and he would become the Mermaid Queen's enemy. The fierce blade concubine's movements were slow, but she was determined. She looked at Yang Dingtian with her beautiful eyes and muttered, I will not regret it. I will not regret it. Even if the queen is lying, I will not regret sacrificing myself for you. Her movements were not fast, but she was determined. Suddenly, a stream of blood flowed down her snow-white neck. Yang Dingtian's eyes were about to burst. But then, he suddenly remembered that he already had a sword soul. The sword soul didn't need profound chi at all. It could be activated and controlled by one's will and consciousness. I'm such an idiot. I was so nervous that I forgot that I still have a sword spirit. Immediately, Yang Dingtian used his consciousness to control the soul sword in his spatial ring. He was very worried. The soul sword that was close to the Emperor grade was in another space. Could it still be controlled by his divine sense? Obviously, he had worried too much. Yang Dingtian was able to easily sense the sword soul, Acho. Subsequently, he was able to easily control its divine senses. Whoosh! Immediately, the soul sword flew out of the space ring. Dang! In an instant, the dagger in Fierce Blade Concubine's hand was sent flying. Fierce Blade Concubine's strength was very weak at this time, and the dagger in her hand was easily knocked away. Then she was stunned. A sword had actually appeared out of thin air and stopped her from committing suicide. Was this a sword soul? Regarding the sword soul, she had only heard of it. The Mermaid Empire basically didn't have such a thing. Only after allying with the evil ways did she understand the concept of the sword soul. She heard that it was the highest realm of human martial arts. How old was Yang Dingtian? He actually had a sword soul. Then, Yang Dingtian used his consciousness to control the soul sword, dipped it in water and wrote on the ground. The mermaid queen is a lunatic. She is a liar. Even if you commit suicide, she will not let me go. Seeing the sword writing on the ground, Fierce Blade Concubine was even more stunned. Then she nodded and said, I know. But even if there is a possibility, I am still willing to do this. The soul sword continued to write. In fact, towards this lunatic, it is not that we have no chance of redeeming her. But if you die, then all our paths of retreat will be blocked, and she and I will become mortal enemies. The only thing I can do to her is to kill her. Fierce Blade Concubine trembled and said, Because of me? Yes, because of you. Yang Dingtian used the soul sword to write. And even if I kill the mermaid queen in the future, I will never be able to forgive myself for your death. It will cause irreparable damage to my heart. Fierce Blade Concubine's face suddenly flushed red and said, You are lying. Your feelings for me are not that deep. Yang Dingtian used his consciousness to control the soul sword and continued to write. This has nothing to do with love. The key is that we have already done that. You can be considered my family. Also, the fact that you're sacrificing yourself for me will destroy my heart. Fierce Blade Concubine's smile was slightly sweet, but also slightly bitter. Yang Dingtian's words were very straightforward. He didn't dare to have extravagant hopes to talk about love, because they had already had the most intimate relationship. Furthermore, the Li Dao concubine had already fallen into his hands. Hence, she was his person, his family. Yang Dingtian using the word family made her feel happy, but also a little bitter. I understand. Fierce Blade Concubine nodded and said, If I commit suicide, it will prove that you are incompetent, right? Yang Dingtian was speechless. Although that was what she meant, she said it too directly. Fierce Blade Concubine asked again, Next, what should we do? Yang Dingtian controlled the soul sword and wrote, I don't know. Your Majesty's mind is like a heavenly steed flying across the sky. I can't understand it at all. Yes, no matter how smart a person was, others would be able to guess what he or she was thinking. But a lunatic, no one knew what she was thinking. Although this was a beautiful woman, who could cause the downfall of a city, she was still a lunatic. In the face of such a lunatic, any plan would be useless. There was only one word to use: improvise. Okay. My soul sword cannot be discovered by anyone. You have to keep it a secret. Yang Dingtian controlled the soul sword to write on the table. Yes, I know. Fierce Blade Concubine nodded. Swoosh! The near Emperor-grade soul sword flew directly into Yang Dingtian's spatial ring and disappeared without a trace. Then, after a slight hesitation, Fierce Blade Concubine tried her best to crawl to Yang Dingtian's side and gently lay her delicate body on his lap. Originally, it was absolutely impossible for her to take the initiative to do such an intimate thing. But now that her life and death were uncertain, and she could be killed by this lunatic queen at any time, she couldn't care so much. Being able to be happy for a quarter of an hour was also a kind of happiness. Then the two of them snuggled like this. Fierce Blade Concubine's heart was in a mess, and she couldn't calm down at all. One moment sweet, the next bitter, the next worried, the next indifferent. And in Yang Dingtian's mind, countless plans appeared. In the end, he found that none of them worked. At least now, he couldn't even break through the mermaid queen's shackles. Instead of planning this and that, it was better to think about how this lunatic queen would deal with him. He didn't know how this lunatic queen's brain worked. What she wanted to do, Yang Dingtian really couldn't think of it. But one thing was for sure. Her heart was twisted, and she instinctively wanted to destroy everything. Beauty, innocence, pride, intelligence, and everything else, she wanted to destroy them all. Moreover, he didn't know how long she would lock him up for. Yang Dingtian originally thought that the mermaid queen would lock him up for at least 3 to 5 days. He didn't expect that in less than half a day, the door would open and the mermaid queen would walk in. Seeing that Fierce Blade Concubine wasn't dead, and was instead lying on Yang Dingtian's lap, her beautiful face suddenly revealed a sarcastic smile and said, Yang Dingtian, It seems that my leader of the internal guards doesn't love you that much. She can't even die for you. Yang Dingtian didn't have any reaction to her words, but he was incomparably nervous. This lunatic queen had returned so quickly. What was she planning to do? Yang Dingtian's mind quickly thought of countless possibilities. How was this queen going to torment him? The mermaid queen stepped forward and easily released all the shackles on Yang Dingtian's Xian meridians and energy sea. Then, she carried him with one hand and fierce blade concubine with the other and walked out. Soon, she once again carried Yang Dingtian and fierce blade concubine to her bedroom. Then, she directly threw fierce blade concubine on the ground. Yang Dingtian, I'm going to introduce you to a guest later. Guess who it is? The mermaid queen said. Yang Dingtian's heart trembled and said, Queen Devil Queen, you're such a disappointment. The mermaid queen clapped her hands and said, Your Majesty Devil Queen, come out. The mystery is gone. Then the Queen Devil Queen slowly walked out. Suddenly, the entire bedroom seemed to light up. Her beauty, as well as her mysterious and seductive temperament, seemed to ignite the entire atmosphere. When standing together, there was finally a woman who could match the mermaid queen's beauty and aura. We meet again, Yang Dingtian. The Queen Devil Queen slowly said, I trust you've been well since we last met. There's a small problem, Yang Dingtian said. The mermaid queen said sweetly, Yang Dingtian, you're going to face another test. The first test is very simple. Between me and the Queen Devil Queen, who do you think is more beautiful? Yang Dingtian directly said, You're more beautiful. The mermaid queen was slightly surprised. She was a little surprised by Yang Dingtian's answer. Then she laughed and said, Oh, why is that? Because I want you, Yang Dingtian said. Wow, you still haven't given up. The mermaid queen laughed. Then, the mermaid queen laughed and said, The Queen Devil Queen asked me to give you to her. She's determined to have you. Then, I said that as long as she's willing to pay the price of her innocence and be possessed by you, I'll agree. Instantly, Yang Dingtian felt his scalp turning numb. This crazy woman. Next, the mermaid queen said, Yang Dingtian, I think the Queen Devil Queen is very uncomfortable. I'm very jealous of Wentian's love for her. So I want to ruin her chastity. Will you help me? The mermaid queen's beautiful eyes widened as she stared at Yang Dingtian. If you help me destroy her innocence, I'll be very grateful to you. Who knows, maybe I won't hand you over to her. Her words were obviously self-contradictory. Facing such a person, not only did Yang Dingtian have a headache, even the Queen Devil Queen felt a headache coming on. Of course, I know my words are self-contradictory. I'll definitely go back on my words. The mermaid queen continued. But I can assure you that I'm not lying in my heart. So it's up to you to decide what to do. The mermaid queen looked at the Queen Devil Queen and said, Devil Queen, maybe after you and Yang Dingtian do it, I'll immediately return and not hand him over to you. I'll stay behind and give birth to my own descendants. After that, she looked at Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian, even if you help me destroy the Devil Queen's innocence, I might immediately go back on my words and hand you over to the evil ways. So what should you do? You can choose for yourself. In any case, I have an answer in my heart. As long as you can achieve the answer in my heart, I'll satisfy you. This crazy woman. When the Queen Devil Queen was around, her madness and warped personality would only become more and more intense. She completely didn't conceal her enmity towards the Queen Devil Queen. Okay, I understand, the Queen Devil Queen said. She directly pulled off her robe and looked at Yang Dingtian. You can do it. I'm ready. After that, she looked at the mermaid queen and said, I hope my actions will satisfy you and fulfill our agreement. Don't worry, I definitely won't snatch Wentian from you. You will monopolize him. Wentian has misophobia when it comes to relationships. He definitely won't be able to accept a Piaoling, who is no longer perfect. The mermaid queen laughed. Yang Dingtian, what are you standing there for? Hurry up and go. Chapter 919. How could he search an area of 5,000 square kilometers in less than an hour? Without mystic qi and countless resentful spirits, it was impossible for Yang Dingtian to achieve it. As for where was the forbidden area of evil ways, Yang Dingtian could enter, the mermaid clan could enter, but the Queen Devil Queen could not enter? That place was definitely not a forbidden area for humans. The biggest difference between Yang Dingtian and the Devil Queen was that the Devil Queen had evil energy in her body, but Yang Dingtian did not. Therefore, this forbidden area must be an energy field that repelled evil energy. At this time, was there anything that could repel evil energy? Yang Dingtian really did not know. If there was, he would be very, very curious. This would be very meaningful for him to defeat evil energy. The architecture of the Mermaid Empire's King City could be considered quite random. In other words, it was very messy and disorderly. It was densely packed with all kinds of houses. There were stone, coral, and many underground caves. There were countless of them. In short, if one could not fly in the entire huge city forest, it really felt like walking through a maze. Under such circumstances, whether one could find the evil spirit forbidden area or not, one could only rely on luck. As for Yang Dingtian, he only had less than an hour. First of all, he was almost certain that this forbidden area should not be in the downtown area, not in the middle of the dense houses. It should be in a more special environment. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian ruled out the east and west on the map. Because of those two places, one was a residential area, and the other was a downtown area. The remaining places were the north and south of the palace. The south side was mainly filled with densely packed barracks, including Yang Dingtian's Lightning Corps, which was located in the southern barracks. And the north, all of them were mausoleums. That's right, all tombs. The entire few hundred square kilometers were all tombs. Of course, not all the dead mermaid clan members could be buried here. But after the king's city moved here, all the dead mermaid clan members were buried here. Even so, there were still millions of mermaid clan members buried here. Yang Dingtian instinctively felt that the so-called evil spirit forbidden area was here. And on the map, Yang Dingtian could clearly see that in the middle of countless tombs, there was an incomparably huge hall. On the map was written, Queen's Palace. So, if there was a so-called evil energy forbidden area in the Mermaid Empire city, it would be here. And this place was about 138 miles away from Yang Dingtian's location. After ascertaining his target, Yang Dingtian flew over. At this time, Yang Dingtian did not have any Xian Qi, so he could only rely on his own physical strength. Without mystic Qi, Yang Dingtian's body would at most be a few times stronger than a healthy human on Earth. He gritted his teeth and desperately run more than 90 miles, which was almost equivalent to a marathon on Earth. And the best marathon on Earth was about 2 hours, and Yang Dingtian was less than an hour. Yang Dingtian without any Xian Qi, his running speed was only a few times smaller than a long-distance runner. He desperately run. After about half an hour, he finally arrived at this incomparably huge group of tombs. This place was densely packed with mermaid clan members' tombs. These tombs were very strange. There were no raised graves, no tombstones, only a statue. They were all gray stone statues, and it was impossible to see the deceased's identity and glory. And the statues were exactly what the mermaid clan members looked like when they were alive. Therefore, when he entered, he saw millions of mermaids standing there motionlessly. Moreover, they were very lifelike. In an instant, the surrounding atmosphere suddenly became incomparably gloomy. Yang Dingtian did not stay for long, and immediately ran even faster towards the central hall of the cemetery. At this time, he had already run more than 100 miles. Even if his physique was much stronger than that of Earth's humans, he still felt that his whole body was about to explode. Because he could not use any Xian Qi, his running speed now was even slower than when he had just left the world of ice and snow. Finally, after running desperately for more than 10 minutes, Yang Dingtian arrived at his destination. In front of him was an incomparably huge mausoleum hall. That's right, it was the hall on the map, the destination that Yang Dingtian had confirmed. At this time, there was less than 15 minutes left before the end of the agreed 1 hour. Yang Dingtian quickly rushed into the hall. Then, He saw an incomparably huge statue. This was an incomparably huge jade statue, at least 100 meters tall. The owner of this jade statue was a Naga. She was extremely beautiful, but also extremely terrifying. Her gaze seemed to shoot out a light that made people tremble. Her long hair was made of countless small snakes, and each small snake was ferocious and terrifying. Could this be Queen Medusa? What did the mermaid clan mean by placing her statue in the center of the mausoleum? She was not dead. Did it mean that even if the mermaid clan died, they would still be loyal and serve Queen Medusa for generations? Or was it to express another meaning? Queen Medusa betrayed the will of the Naga Empire because she let the mermaid clan go. Now, after the mermaid clan died, they took the initiative to turn themselves into stone statues. Then, by placing the statue of Queen Medusa in the center, it meant that Queen Medusa had obeyed the will of the Naga Empire and turned the mermaid empire into stone. So could the heavens please not punish Queen Medusa? And Yang Dingtian noticed that all the other statues of the mermaid clan were all made of stone. Only the huge statue of Queen Medusa was made of white jade. Therefore, her entire huge statue was sparkling and translucent, overflowing with light and color. Of course, all of this was not important. The important thing was the statue of Queen Medusa, in the center of the Mermaid Empire's mausoleum. Was it the forbidden area of evil spirits? It sounded very similar. The sacred place of Goddess Medusa, where the souls of the mermaid clan lived. If there was such a forbidden area of evil spirits in the Mermaid Empire, then this place was very similar. And it felt like the only place that could possibly be a forbidden area. But at this moment, this place was completely empty. The Mermaid Queen was not here. She said that she would wait for Yang Dingtian at the destination to sleep with her. In other words, only the place where she was a forbidden area of evil ways. But the Mermaid Queen was not here. The entire hall was completely empty. There were no secret rooms, only a huge statue of Medusa. And the statue was made of white jade, almost transparent inside. There were no compartments inside. Then could it be that the forbidden area was not here? Or was the Mermaid Queen lying? Yang Dingtian instinctively felt that although the Mermaid Queen was incomparably crazy, but in this game she would not lie. She was here to find excitement, so she would not lie. In this case, it could only prove that Yang Dingtian had found the wrong place. This was not the forbidden area. So, Yang Dingtian quickly took out the map. If this was not the forbidden area, then where was the forbidden area? There was not much time left. There was only about 10 minutes before the game ended. Where was the forbidden area? Where was it? Where was it? Yang Dingtian desperately searched the huge map, but he could not find a second place that was similar to the forbidden area. The hall under his feet seemed to be the only place that could be a forbidden area. At this moment, time was extremely tight. Yang Dingtian suddenly felt extremely nervous. He sat down, closed his eyes, and began to think quickly. The forbidden area of evil ways, the forbidden area of the Queen Devil Queen, the forbidden area of evil spirits. First of all, was there a real forbidden area of evil spirits in this world? Even if there was, could the Mermaid Empire have this energy field? Suddenly, a thought flashed through Yang Dingtian's mind. The Mermaid Queen did it on purpose. The game she gave would definitely be very mischievous, very perverted, and very unexpected. Yes, it would definitely be very unexpected. She was a lunatic. If the destination was the hall in the middle of the tomb, then to her, it would be too boring. Then, this forbidden area would definitely be a place that was absolutely unexpected, but also absolutely reasonable. Where would this forbidden area be? Suddenly, another thought flashed through Yang Dingtian's mind. He recalled the place where he spent time with Queen Lan Qi in New Naga. There were a total of 2 places. One was the library, and the other was Yang Dingtian's room. At the beginning, Yang Dingtian and she were reading books in the library. But later on, most of the time, they were in his room. The two of them ate, drank, and chatted in there. Then, where would the only forbidden area of the Queen Devil Queen be? Was it the place where the Mermaid Queen and Wentian spent time together? And it was definitely not some forbidden area of evil spirits. Yang Dingtian's guess was wrong from the start. The Mermaid Queen had said that Wentian spent half a year with her. They lived a very happy life, playing chess, cards, and so on every day. Hence, the place where the Mermaid Queen and Wentian spent time together would definitely be a forbidden area for the Devil Queen. The Mermaid Queen and the Devil Queen definitely had an agreement. This place belonged to the Mermaid Queen and Wentian. The Devil Queen felt that she could not take even half a step in here. Yes, that must be the case. Then, where was the place where the Mermaid Queen and Wentian spent time together? Was it the library? Or a room? Or perhaps it was some pavilion? A tall tower? Yang Dingtian's mind was filled with thoughts. Firstly, the Mermaid Empire had a library and a martial arts hall. However, there were many mermaids there, and it was not a very private place. Furthermore, there were many libraries in the Mermaid Empire. Unfortunately, the royal palace's library was not very big, because the Mermaid Queen did not like to read. A pavilion? A tall tower? Where exactly was the place where the Mermaid Queen and Wentian had a private meeting? Firstly, Wentian was a human. His private meeting might be more secretive. Just like at the start, when Yang Dingtian was summoned into the royal palace, he could only interact with the fierce Blade Princess. Hence, it was very likely that the meeting place was Wentian's room. Then where was Wentian's room? The royal palace of the Mermaid Empire was extremely huge. It would not be easy to find Wentian's room. But very quickly, a detail flashed past Yang Dingtian's mind. On the ground, there seemed to be some kind of imprint. Yang Dingtian tried his best to recall. That's right, there was a chessboard on the ground. It was a chessboard that was drawn by a sword. Later on it was erased. However, there were still very faint traces left on the ground. A chessboard, and it was a Go chessboard. In this world, who knew how to play Go? Other than Yang Dingtian, it was Wentian. That's right. That must be the place where Wentian and the Mermaid Queen played Go. Right. Also, when the Mermaid Queen asked Yang Dingtian to electrocute her, she asked him to wear Wentian's mask. In that case, it was very normal for her to arrange for Yang Dingtian to stay in the same room that Wentian stayed in over 100 years ago. Yang Dingtian recalled that the Forbidden Zone was actually within the royal palace. It was the room that Yang Dingtian stayed in. That's right, this answer was very logical and bizarre. This was completely in line with the crazy personality of the Mermaid Queen. This answer was shocking enough. She wanted to torment Yang Dingtian and torture Yang Dingtian. She wanted him to misunderstand that the Forbidden Zone was a type of energy forbidden zone. Moreover, she was willing to give him a map. Her goal was to make him act foolishly and run to the royal palace. In reality, he didn't even need to leave the royal palace. He only needed to return to his room. In that case, when Yang Dingtian lost and received the real answer, he would definitely hate himself for his foolishness and regret it. And at that time, the Mermaid Queen would be the most excited. Right now, Yang Dingtian had found the Forbidden Zone. It was in his room in the royal palace. The Mermaid Queen was currently lying naked on the bed, waiting for him. However, that room was a total of 138 li away from here. Yang Dingtian was already extremely tired and didn't have any xianqi left. The most important thing was that there were less than 10 minutes left. Even if he died, he wouldn't be able to reach that place. Without xianqi, he couldn't fly and couldn't teleport. Even if he died, he wouldn't be able to rush back. In that case, was there nothing he could do? Of course not. He didn't have xianqi, but he had the soul sword. He couldn't fly, but the soul sword could. So, instantly, Yang Dingtian used his consciousness to control the soul sword, and it flew out from his interspatial ring. Yang Dingtian grabbed the soul sword and hid it in his clothes, not letting anyone see it. Then, he used his consciousness to control the soul sword and it flew at lightning speed. From the outside, it looked like Yang Dingtian was the one flying, and not the soul sword. Previously, he didn't want to reveal the soul sword, but now he had no choice. Winning the game and winning the Mermaid Queen was more important than hiding the soul sword's secret. So, the soul sword carried Yang Dingtian and flew at a fast speed. In an hour, it easily traveled more than 1,000 li. So, in just 5 minutes, Yang Dingtian flew back to the royal palace. Then, He quickly kept the soul sword in his interspatial ring and returned to his room. He gently pushed the door open. Ah! Inside, there was a cry of surprise. The mermaid queen, whose body was as delicate as snow, was lying on the stone bed and shouting at Yang Dingtian in surprise. Yang Dingtian 1. Chapter 920. Yang Dingtian slowly walked into his room, looking at the beautiful mermaid queen on the stone bed. A victorious smile appeared on his face. I've won, Your Majesty. I clearly saw you running towards the north of the palace. You should be in the main hall of the tomb. The mermaid queen said. That's right. I should be in the main hall of the tomb. Yang Dingtian continued. However, I'm here now. The mermaid queen didn't conceal the shock in her eyes. She sat up on the stone bed and said, Time is of the essence. It's impossible for you to arrive in such a short period of time. That's right, but I'm here. Yang Dingtian walked as he spoke. If you agree to a bet, you must accept your loss. Will you go back on your words? Your Majesty, you have to fulfill your end of the bet and become my woman. Yang Dingtian indeed only thought of the right direction at the very last moment. The mermaid queen couldn't help but clamp her legs together as she instinctively shrunk her body. She was lying. At this moment, she still had clothes on her body. It was a blue nightgown that was as smooth as water, and it lazily clung to her mountain-like body. You broke through my xianqi restriction? The mermaid queen asked. Of course not. Yang Dingtian continued. You can come over and check. My xianqi and qi are still firmly locked by you. How did you know about this place? The mermaid queen asked. I guessed. Yang Dingtian continued. You crazy woman. You must have set your sights on an extremely special and unexpected place. Then, there's no place more unexpected than my room. Coincidentally, 200 years ago, when the demon king Wentian entered the mermaid empire, he just so happened to stay here. Hence, this place became the forbidden zone of the Queen Devil Queen. She can't invade your private space. You are indeed very intelligent. The mermaid queen continued. However, people who are too intelligent will die early. It doesn't matter. Yang Dingtian directly climbed onto the stone bed and directly pressed on towards the mermaid queen. For the first time, the mermaid queen's beautiful eyes revealed a trace of weakness. She panted. You really want me? Of course, Yang Dingtian said. Then let me tell you, once you have me, there is a 90% chance that I will kill you, the mermaid queen said. Yang Dingtian. Let's get it first. I'm serious. When it's over, I'll kill you, the mermaid queen said. Yang Dingtian, you have two choices. One is to kill me now, and the other is to fulfill the bet and let me have you. Finishing his statement, Yang Dingtian held onto the mermaid queen's beautiful face, opened his mouth, and fiercely kissed her fiery lips. Almost instantaneously, the mermaid queen had accumulated countless flames, and they burned fiercely in an instant. This kind of flame seemed to have ignited from the depths of hell. Once ignited, it was impossible to extinguish it. Her magical celestial body instantly became as hot as fire. Then, the mermaid queen felt an unbearable pain. A characteristic that she had never had before finally appeared. She had finally become a complete female. After an unknown period of time, the complete madness finally stopped. The two of them were sprawled on the ground, not moving at all. Yang Dingtian opened his eyes first, and then the mermaid queen opened her eyes. You have me. I've never felt such a feeling before. In just one day, it's better than 10,000 years. The mermaid queen said. If I knew this feeling would be so good, I wouldn't have tortured you for so long. I would have gone completely crazy with you. It's not too late now, right? Yang Dingtian kissed her lips. Are you and your other women also so crazy? Like wild beasts? The mermaid queen asked. No, just with you, Yang Dingtian said. Why? Because you hate me so much? The mermaid queen asked with a smile. Yes, I hate you so much, Yang Dingtian said. The mermaid queen smiled charmingly. Then should I make you hate me to the end? Yang Dingtian raised his hand. Please don't. The mermaid queen continued. In that case, do you think I like you more or Wentian more? Yang Dingtian shook his head. Both shouldn't be much, right? Your longing for Wentian is merely longing for those happy days. And for you, of course, it's just the joy of the past day. Should I say that you have low self-esteem, or that you know your own limits? The Mermaid Queen asked. Both of these statements are not good, but both are true. Yang Dingtian replied. Before this, have you ever had a woman stronger than you? The Mermaid Queen asked. Yang Dingtian replied. When I slept with them, the majority of them were stronger than me. Naturally, I'm the strongest now. You are an exception. The Mermaid Queen's beautiful neck tilted backwards as her jade-like hands unconsciously caressed Yang Dingtian's face. After that, she smiled and asked, Before you had me, I once said that after I slept with you, I would kill you. Do you think I would do that? Yang Dingtian's heart trembled. I don't know. You can't say that you don't know. You have to answer yes or no. The Mermaid Queen said. I think I would. Yang Dingtian replied. Why? The Mermaid Queen asked. I discovered that although you are crazy and twisted, you will do whatever you want. But basically, you will do whatever you say. For this game, you have lost. Since you agreed to the bet, you must accept your loss and give yourself to me. Yang Dingtian continued. But before that, since you said you would kill me, you will most likely still kill me. Since you know, why do you still want me? Could it be that you want me to be more important than your life? The Mermaid Queen laughed. Of course my life is more important, Yang Dingtian continued. But I also want to take a gamble. I am also willing to accept my loss. The Mermaid Queen laughed. You are right. Then the Mermaid Queen said. Then before you die, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? You can only say one thing. Also, you have to consider my ability to accept it. Don't ask for too much. Yang Dingtian thought for a while and said, Don't hurt Fierce Blade Princess. Don't let her die. The Mermaid Queen was stunned. Then she smiled and said, You are indeed a gentle man and a very good man. Taking a deep breath, the Mermaid Queen said gently, My heart almost softened. I know that this is your heartfelt words, and not a plan to save your life. But I am sorry. I can't let a man control me. I also don't want to be on the losing side. Of course, in the end, I don't want a man to control me. I want to be free and unique. I am sorry. The Mermaid Queen raised her palm and slammed it down. Her palm was incomparably beautiful like jade and snow. However, this was the power of a saint-level fighter. Without a sound, it slammed down on Yang Dingtian's back. There was no vomiting of blood, no screaming. In an instant, Yang Dingtian no longer had any aura or vitality. His heart stopped beating. His celestial qi stopped circulating. Death seemed to have suddenly descended and taken over Yang Dingtian's body and soul. Although Yang Dingtian was strong enough, compared to the saint-level Mermaid Queen, he was probably nothing. Then, the Mermaid Queen walked out of the room in her golden dress. As for Yang Dingtian, she did not even look at him. With that slap, Yang Dingtian would definitely die. There was no need to look. When she left the room, she swept her sleeve. Instantly, Yang Dingtian's corpse was swept a few thousand meters away and flew out of the palace. Then, she swung her sleeve again, as if she wanted to sweep away all traces of Yang Dingtian's aura. Go bury him in the center of the Mermaid Mausoleum, to the right of my grave. The Mermaid Queen said slowly. Give him a tombstone with the words Husband of the Mermaid Empire, Yang Dingtian on it. Yes. Immediately, 2 guards flew over and picked up Yang Dingtian's corpse, and flew towards the Mermaid Mausoleum. An hour later, there was a tombstone in the center of the Mermaid Mausoleum. On it were the words Grave of Husband of the Mermaid Empire, Yang Dingtian. As for Yang Dingtian, he was already buried deep in the soil. This Mermaid Queen really did what she said. How vicious and merciless. When Yang Dingtian was faced with a dead end, he often liked to gamble. But this time, he really did not know if it was a loss or a win. It should still be a loss. Although he had achieved his goal, he had lost his life. The 2 beautiful mermaid guards let out a deep sigh, and then flew away in spirals. 4 hours later, a black shadow flew over from afar, and completely covered the sky above the Mermaid Mausoleum. It was none other than the Queen Devil Queen of the Evil Ways, the former sect master of the Yin sect, Nihility Piaoling. The Queen Devil Queen flapped her huge demonic wings and landed in the center of the mermaid mausoleum. Looking at Yang Dingtian's tombstone, she could not help but sigh softly and reveal a complicated expression. As expected of a crazy mermaid, Yang Dingtian, you made a mistake, the Queen Devil Queen said indifferently. Then, she pulled out her sword and began to dig. After digging 5 feet into the ground, she saw Yang Dingtian's corpse. At this time it was still vivid and lifelike. She dug out Yang Dingtian's corpse and restored the mermaid mausoleum to its original state. Then, the Queen Devil Queen hugged Yang Dingtian and flapped her huge wings, flying towards the endless darkness in the west. Chapter 922. The Infernal Queen's undead concubine flapped her gigantic wings and constantly flew towards the west, flying away, flying away. Soon, she flew out of the 1,000-miles imperial city and entered the deep sea. But wherever her aura passed, all the seawater avoided her. She continued to fly towards the west. She flew 5,000 miles, flew over 10,000 miles. Immediately, she reached the end of the ocean. This place was already completely surrounded by dark matter. This place was already the end of the mermaid empire. The demon queen undead concubine took out a magic wand. There was a bright eye embedded in it. If Yang Dingtian could see, he would definitely recognize that this was the eye of the primordial naga. That's right, Yang Dingtian had a pair of primordial naga eyes. And so did Queen Devil Queen. Yang Dingtian had the eyes of the sea snake descendant primordial naga. And Queen Devil Queen had the eyes of the mermaid descendant primordial naga. Primordial naga's eyes burst out with incomparably bright brilliance. Wherever it shone, all the dark matter melted, turning into a huge void. Queen Devil Queen hugged Yang Dingtian and followed the dark void, constantly going deeper, deeper, deeper. And as she moved forward, the dark matter behind her constantly recovered, quickly filling up the void again. The Devil Queen's dead concubine kept flying, flying, flying. She flew for thousands of miles of dark matter. Whoosh! Then, he suddenly flew into a dark nothingness. Amidst the endless nothingness, here there was no sky, no land, no sun, no moon, no stars. All he had was an endless void of darkness. Then, countless huge castles floated in the void. Countless dark castles were like a huge devil machine. Each dark castle was tens of thousands of meters tall and hundreds of thousands of meters wide. Moreover, all of them were built with special energy substances. Each castle was equivalent to a floating city. It was completely like a huge mountain. On top of it, it was densely packed with the terrifying Legion of Doom. In each castle that was hundreds of miles wide, there were millions of Legion of Doom. They were densely packed like ants, distributed in the huge square in the castle. In the huge hall in the castle, the Legion of Doom in each castle was different. But the most ordinary ones were the 5 meters tall giant warriors. That's right, they were all transformed by the Maori barbarians. But now they no longer looked like the Maori barbarians. The Maori barbarians were only about 2 meters tall. And each of these warriors were more than 5 meters tall. Each warrior had 3 heads and 6 arms. It only had 2 legs, but they had become incomparably thick and long. It only had 1 body, but it was already incomparably huge. Every castle had a gigantic energy formation that was several thousand meters in size. Countless energy tentacles extended into the ground, and reach into the air, to crazily absorb the energy of the entire world, to maintain the operation of the giant castle. In the center of the castle, there was a giant refining array. Countless Maori barbarian soldiers lined up to enter the refining array. Then their bodies were instantly torn into pieces. Their blood, their souls, their skeletons, their energy were all separated. They were turned into countless pieces of flesh, powder, and energy. Then they were sent into another large fusion array. The countless pieces of flesh, energy, and souls were once again condensed. They were condensed into an incomparably terrifying and disgusting Legion of Doom. The energy array of the Empire of Darkness tore the hundreds of millions of Maori barbarians into pieces. Then it reformed them into any shape they wanted. Yang Dingtian was unable to see it. If he could see it, he would definitely vomit, be shocked and tremble. The Darkness Empire was actually able to crush a living being into powder, and then reassemble it. It was as though these were not humans, but metal or plastic. They could melt them all, and reform them into another product. That's right, this was the Empire of Darkness. It was the most evil, most terrifying place in the world. Each of the giant castles had countless tentacles that crazily absorbed the energy of the entire world, and the entire continent. Each of the castles had a huge refining formation that crushed all living things into pieces. Each of the giant castles had a fusion array that reassembled all the life energy fragments into a Legion of Doom. Wu Yoming's guess was correct. The Legion of Doom was indeed energy, and there were countless giant castles like this in the entire Empire of Darkness. Moreover, each of the castles was tightly connected by energy tentacles. Roar! Suddenly, a loud roar came from one of the castles. Then many gigantic night owls, night devils and countless other monsters, as well as countless crystals and treasures, were sucked into the giant refining formation. Then, whether it was the Millennium Owl, other demon beasts, or the crystals and treasures, all of them were completely refined into terrifying energy. Finally, a gigantic energy creature flew out of the fusion array. This was an incomparably ferocious and terrifying energy monster. It looked like an owl, but it was more like a Western dragon in the movies on Earth. This terrifying energy dragon was at least a few thousand meters long. It suddenly flew out of the fusion array, opened its mouth, and instantly spat out flames that soared hundreds of thousands of meters into the sky. Pa 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 pa. Then, it suddenly struck out terrifying lightning that was tens of thousands of meters long. Whoosh 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 whoosh. And such huge dark dragons flew out one after another. Then, they completely hovered over the entire Empire of Darkness. There were dozens and hundreds of them in front of them. It could be said that just one dark dragon alone was enough to wipe out an army of hundreds of thousands. And in the next giant castle, countless fire demon earth dragons, corrosive earth dragons, metal-eating earth dragons, perhaps millions or tens of millions. In short, countless earth dragons of all kinds were all sucked into the refining array, and instantly turned into countless flesh and blood and energy. Then, they were combined again in the fusion array. Suddenly, a terrifying earth dragon, that was tens of thousands of meters long and hundreds of meters thick suddenly drilled out. Roar! It let out a disgusting roar and opened its terrifying mouth. There were tens of thousands of teeth inside. Yang Dingtian didn't even see it. If he saw it, even if he was a god, he would completely despair about this apocalyptic war. The Demon King Wentian had prepared for 200 years. What did he get? How did he know about such an astonishing castle and energy array? In short, for 200 years, he had created an earth-shattering and terrifying Legion of Doom. This Legion of Doom was different from all the previous ones in history. This Legion of Doom was not to attack the human empire at all. It was to slaughter gods. The Queen Devil Queen continued to fly. After entering the Empire of Darkness, she still flew 20,000 miles and passed through countless giant castles. Finally, she came to the center of the entire empire. Here, there was a tower that reached the sky. All the giant castles protected it in the center. It was unknown how tall it was. Perhaps it was hundreds of thousands of meters, perhaps millions of meters, or perhaps even taller, because it reached down into the endless abyss of the Earth's core, and reached up into the endless deep space. The energy tentacles of all the castles extended to the top of this sky-reaching tower. The Devil Queen's dead concubine carried Yang Dingtian, and slowly flew into the main hall of the tower. An incomparably dark, but incomparably gorgeous hall. A hall that was 1,000 meters tall. Even the dark palace of Lich King Arthas in the Kingdom of Warcraft was not as magnificent as this. Everything in the hall was empty. Above there was a dark throne made of an indescribable material. Your Majesty, the King of the Human Kingdoms, Yang Dingtian has been brought here. The Queen Devil Queen slowly knelt down and said, "But he is already dead. He was killed by the Mermaid Queen. This crazy woman." A deep and gloomy voice sounded in the air. It was as if metal was rubbing against each other, or as if a cold wind was pouring into a cave in a large mountain. "But it doesn't matter if he's dead. To us life and death are just nouns. The voice of the demon king Wentian sounded. Whoosh! Then a cold wind seemed to blow through the air. Suddenly countless black dust condensed and turned into a dark figure. This was the demon king Wentian. But only a black shadow and a pair of eyes that were like colorless flames could be seen. Your Majesty, Demon King, now that everything has been completed and all the arrangements have been completed, isn't it time for your resurrection? Isn't it time to summon your body and life in the human kingdoms? The Queen Devil Queen said. No, no, no. The Demon King Wentian smiled and said, there's no hurry. My resurrection is the most insignificant thing. What's important is the person in front of me, the spokesperson of the god of chaos, the child of destiny, Yang Dingtian. The Queen Devil Queen trembled and said, we just need his greater space technique. No, no, no. The Demon King Wentian laughed and said, we need him to do more. Okay, the main character is here, so the biggest wedding in history should start. Piao Ling, are you ready to be a bride? The Queen Devil Queen said in shock. No, no, I am your woman. I am the Devil Queen. How can I marry Yang Dingtian? The Demon King Wentian laughed and said, marry him and you will still be the Devil Queen, understand? Suddenly, the Queen Devil Queen was completely shocked. The Demon King Wentian said slowly, since it's a wedding and the knell to destroy the world, why not make it even grander? Then let's not just have one bride but 4. From now on, there will be 4 Devil Queen. Little brother Yang Dingtian, your luck with women is not bad, ha ha ha. The Demon King Wentian's shadow laughed crazily. Chapter 923. Sigh. After struggling for hundreds of years, it's finally time to reap the rewards. The Demon King Wentian looked at Yang Dingtian's face and slowly said, little brother, although I have never seen you before, we are each other's only family in this world, our only compatriots. So let us share all the glory and suffering. Then, the Demon King Wentian suddenly raised his hands, and Yang Dingtian's body slowly flew up towards the highest point of the tower. He flew higher and higher, higher and higher. Then, in the huge space, countless energy lights suddenly grew out and wrapped around his body. Just like that, Yang Dingtian's body was hung at the top of the tower, that was hundreds of thousands of meters high. They looked a little like the imprisoned gods in myths and legends. The Demon King Wentian looked at the Devil Queen and said, the main character is here. Now it's time to invite the guests. Yes, Your Majesty. The Devil Queen's expression was incomparably complicated. Then, she suddenly spread her wings and flew towards the Mermaid Empire in the east. One day later, the Devil Queen once again descended on the palace of the Mermaid Empire. The Mermaid Queen was still standing in front of the window, motionless as she looked at the palace outside. Her beautiful eyes were filled with confusion. The Devil Queen slowly landed in front of her and said, Your Majesty, it's time. You should set off for the Empire of Darkness. The Mermaid Queen casually replied and then said, What about my Sea Race Army? The Devil Queen said, The Sea Race Army is not in a hurry. This time, you are invited to the Empire of Darkness to participate in a wedding? Wedding? The Mermaid Queen shook her head and said, I'm not going. The Devil Queen said, I'm afraid you have to go because you will also become one of the brides? The Mermaid Queen was a little interested and said, If I become a bride, who will I marry? The Devil Queen said, That's a secret, but I can tell you that I will also be one of the brides. The Mermaid Queen's beautiful eyes suddenly brightened and said, Now I'm really interested. But my husband just died. Wouldn't it be bad if I remarry? The Devil Queen said, Your husband? When did you remarry? The Mermaid Queen said, Just yesterday. It was that little man Yang Dingtian. After we slept, I killed him. He only slept with her. He didn't marry her. So he's not considered her husband. It's not considered remarriage. The Infernal Queen's dead concubine said. The Mermaid Queen thought for a while and said, You're right. How about this? I'll go with you to see who the groom is. If I like him, I'll marry him. If not, I won't marry him. The Demon Queen's dead princess said, Of course. Then, the Mermaid Queen, and the Mermaid of the Mermaid Queen of the Mermaid Queen to the west. After flying to the end of the Mermaid Empire, The Mermaid Queen's expression was clearly a little excited, because they had arrived at the place surrounded by the dark matter. The Devil Queen took out her devil palm. The eyes of the primordial Naga on it released light and melted the dark matter again. Then, under the Mermaid Queen's excited and fanatical gaze, the two peerless beauties flew into the deep cave. And behind them, the dark matter was constantly recovering. After flying several thousand miles through the dark matter, the Devil Queen, undead concubine, and the Mermaid Queen flew into the Darkness Empire. As for the Mermaid Queen, she was immediately shocked. Then she almost held her breath. Your Legion of Doom is so powerful that you don't need our sea race army. Why are you still so patient with me? The Devil Queen said indifferently. His Majesty said to unite all forces that can be united. In the following time, the Mermaid Queen's disrespect completely disappeared and was replaced by infinite seriousness and shock. Obviously, the Empire of Darkness in front of her had brought an unprecedented shock to her. Even these terrifying castles, these energy claws that reached the heavens and the earth, had already exceeded her imagination. After flying for tens of thousands of miles and passing through countless huge dark castles, the Devil Queen brought the Mermaid Queen and slowly flew into the central tower. Of course, this was not the hall where the Demon King Wentian was, but a room, a magnificent room. Your Majesty, this is your room. There are many books and special maids inside. I hope you'll be satisfied. The Devil Queen said. And I still need to invite the others. The Mermaid Queen glanced at the magnificent room and said, Other than you, are there any other living people here? The Devil Queen hesitated for a moment, then shook her head and said, Sorry, there's no one left. The Mermaid Queen said, Then you're not staying to accompany me. Where are you going? The Devil Queen said, To pick up the other two brides. With that, the Devil Queen flew out of the tower. This time, she flew towards the northwest. The Devil Queen was not alone. She had more than a dozen huge dark dragons. Some were thousands of meters long, and some were even tens of thousands of meters long. On top of them, there was a dense pack of meat and grain. More than a dozen dragons carried hundreds of millions of kilograms of grain and meat. Under the lead of the Devil Queen, they flew towards the northwest. Because this was the Empire of Darkness, other than the huge dark castles, there was only a void. Otherwise, when the dark dragons flew over the human countries, just the storm caused by the flapping of their wings would be destructive. However, the dark dragon's flying speed was not very fast. After 2 days and 2 nights, they flew more than 30,000 miles. Then, the Demon Queen Undead Concubine led the dozen or so dragons to a stop. She took out her magic wand again and shone it at the dark matter above. Immediately, the light of the primeval Naga completely melted the dark matter above them. The dark matter here was very thin, only a few tens of thousands of meters. The Devil Queen's magic palm easily illuminated a large hole with a diameter of a few hundred meters. Rumble. Then a loud sound came from above. Immediately layer after layer of barriers were opened. Finally, a ray of light shot down and directly saw the sky outside. Immediately after, an incomparably charming voice sounded. Your Majesty Devil Queen, how have you been? The Devil Queen said. Queen High Exian, I've brought you food and meat. Then, Queen High Exian said. Then, the Devil Queen suddenly used her power. Instantly, the food on the dark dragon's back flowed like a tide toward the cave. It flew upward and directly entered the pyramid of the Naga Empire. That's right. This was the reason why the Snake People Empire could still feed tens of millions of troops, even if their productivity was greatly reduced. She and the Empire of Darkness had long been in cahoots. The Devil Queen had always been transporting food for her empire. As for how the Empire of Darkness obtained such an astronomical amount of food and meat, that was unknown. Although this astronomical amount of food flew out faster than a meteor, it still took a full 4 hours to transport all of it to the giant pyramid of the Snake People Empire. Queen High Exian laughed hoarsely and said, Then thank you, Your Majesty Devil Queen. I owe you another favor. I hope to have a chance to return it. The Devil Queen said. Queen High Exian, this time, other than delivering food, I'm inviting you to the Skirich imperial capital of the Empire of Darkness. Queen Hyexian fell into a short silence and said, I'm very, very grateful for your invitation. I also feel extremely honored, but I'm very sorry. I'm really busy. The Devil Queen said, I believe Li Ming has already sent you the invitation, right? Queen Hyexian said, Yes, I'm very willing to attend his wedding with Princess Mudan, but, the Devil Queen said, This time, I'm inviting you as the bride to attend the biggest wedding in history. Queen Hyexian suddenly trembled and said, Me bride? May I ask who I'm marrying? Is it His Majesty Demon King? But if you remember correctly, in this world, other than Yang Dingtian, no one can make me go into heat. The Devil Queen said slowly, I'll say two things. First, His Majesty Demon King said that we should unite all forces that can be united. Second, Yang Dingtian is already in the Skirich imperial capital, and he's dead. What? Queen Hyexian cried out in shock, tears gushing out. She said in disbelief, He's dead? Impossible, impossible. It seems that your Majesty's heart belongs to someone. The Devil Queen smiled and said, Don't worry, he will revive in another way. Then the person you will marry will also be him. Of course, I will also be marrying him. Queen Hyexian was completely shocked. This turn of events was too shocking. Yang Dingtian was going to revive? Moreover, she was going to marry Yang Dingtian. And the Devil Queen was also going to marry Yang Dingtian. Weren't they afraid of offending the seniority? The Devil Queen smiled and said, All these years, we've sent you countless grains and meat, as well as countless treasures. It should be enough as a betrothal gift, right? Queen Seaheart said bitterly, I don't have any other choice, do I? Yes, you have no choice. The Devil Queen said, If you refuse, your Snakeman Empire will be wiped out in 3 days. Okay, I understand, Queen Hyexian said. Then, she flew into the 100-meter-long tunnel from the pyramid. She flew into a dark void, and came to the Devil Queen's side. Let's go to the Skirich imperial capital. From now on, we will be sisters, the Devil Queen said. Then, she led Queen Hyexian and flew towards the west. The Sea Heart Queen immediately saw countless enormous black dragons. This was the first time she had seen such terrifying creatures. So it turned out that the food and meat had been carried by them every time. Instantly, Queen Hyexian's heart was filled with bitterness. Then, after seeing countless huge castles, Queen Hyexian felt suffocated. Although her mermaid empire was also very powerful, it was as weak as a baby in front of the Empire of Darkness. The Devil Queen was not exaggerating when she said that she would destroy the Snakeman Empire in 3 days. The Devil Queen and the dead princess entered the Skirich imperial capital with the Sea Heart Queen. Of course, they entered another luxurious room. This is your room. You can read and rest, but you can't leave normally, the Devil Queen said. Queen Hyexian looked at the magnificent room with complicated feelings. She said, Where is Yang Dingtian? The Devil Queen said, He's here too. Don't worry. In a few days at most, you'll be able to see a new Yang Dingtian. A Yang Dingtian filled with incomparable charm. Queen Hyexian sat down on the bed and looked at everything in the room. It was filled with joy. There were even red 11 characters from Earth everywhere. However, in this environment, even the red quilts and red 11 characters did not have any sense of joy. Instead, it was filled with gloominess. The Devil Queen said, All right, I'm going to pick up the 4th bride. Who is she? Princess Mudan Dongfang Bingling? Queen Hyexian asked. The Devil Queen smiled. You won't be able to guess. It's a woman you can't imagine at all. Then, the Devil Queen forgot to open her huge dark wings and flew out of the Skirich imperial capital. This time, she flew directly towards the north and disappeared into the darkness in the blink of an eye. At the same time, in the energy prison that tore open space, the naked Princess Vulture knelt in the center. She put her palms together and prayed continuously. Heaven, earth, twin moons, twin suns, God of chaos, no matter what, please give me a miracle, and let me leave this place, let me leave this prison. I'm willing to exchange anything, whether it's my soul or my body. If you can let me out, I'm willing to let a beast humiliate me 10,000 times. Vulture prayed and kowtowed sincerely, Chapter 924. Queen Devil Queen kept flying north. After flying for a few thousand miles, she took out her magic wand and melted the dark matter above her head into a cave. Then she directly drilled in. Next, Queen Devil Queen turned hundreds and thousands of times, constantly shuttling through the dark matter, constantly changing directions. After flying for a few hours, she did not know how many thousands of miles she had flown. In the end, the passage of the melted dark matter became narrower and narrower. In the end, only one person could barely pass through. So Queen Devil Queen had no choice but to retract her huge wings. The dark matter here had already become a sharp tentacle, as if it had directly penetrated into another space, and it was still constantly fantasizing. The light of the Ghost Princess wand suddenly shone. Suddenly, the dark matter in front completely melted and turned into a hole. In front was a completely different world, another plane. Everywhere there were floating boulders. There was no sky, no earth, only floating boulders. That's right, this was a torn space. Although Devil Queen did not know the greater space spell, the tentacles of the dark matter had already crossed space and planes, touching every place. She, who had the eyes of the primeval Naga, could shuttle through the dark matter and reach any place. Whoosh! Devil Queen suddenly flew out of the dark matter and drilled into the torn space. And behind, the dark matter completely recovered, turning into sharp tentacles that connected to various spaces. Infernal Queen Undead Concubine flapped her wings and constantly flew upwards in search. Her beautiful figure constantly shuttled between the boulders. 10 hours later, Queen Devil Queen was hanging above the energy prison where Vulture was. At this moment, Vulture was kneeling in the prison, praying over and over again. Heaven, earth, twin moons, twin suns, God of chaos. No matter what, please give me a miracle. Let me leave this place, let me leave this prison. I am willing to exchange anything, whether it is my soul or my body. If you can let me out, I am willing to let a beast humiliate me 10,000 times. As long as I can be free, as long as I can take revenge, I am willing to pay any price, any price. Even if I become a devil, even if 10,000 demons take turns to trample on me, even if my body is riddled with holes. As long as I can get out of here, I will use all my means to take revenge. I will take revenge on Yang Dingtian, his family, Walingzi Dongli, and Wu Yuming. Ha ha ha. As long as I can get out, I'm willing to pay any price, any price. Looking at Spirit Vulture, who had gone completely crazy, the Infernal Queen Undead Samurai said slowly, "Are you sure?" The vulture trembled. Its first reaction was that it was an illusion. Then she jerked her head up and looked around. Soon, he saw the Queen Devil Queen hanging in the air like a monarch overlooking the world. Her beauty had already caused countless floating boulders to stagnate. Her aura completely enveloped the entire torn space. I'm sure. The vulture immediately knelt down in front of her and said, I beg you, please save me. I am willing to be your slave, your loyal dog. The Devil Queen said, You said that even if you become a demon, you are willing? The vulture nodded desperately and said, Not to mention becoming a demon, even if I become a malicious spirit, I am willing. Very good. The Devil Queen nodded. She suddenly raised her lily-white hand, and the energy prison embedded in the boulder suddenly flew out. Then she clapped her palm lightly. Suddenly, the energy prison was completely shattered. The vulture felt that the shackles on its body were all gone, and it immediately became extremely excited. I am free. Haha. All those who have harmed me, all those who have wronged me, just you wait, you will get the craziest revenge, ha ha ha. Yang Dingtian, Walingzi Wu Yuming, all of you remember, I will crazily take revenge on all of you. The naked vulture laughed and cried crazily, cheering and dancing wildly. The Infernal Queen Undead Samurai glanced at her nonchalantly. She rolled up her long sleeves, and immediately wrapped around the spirit vulture's body. Then, she flapped her huge wings, and flew toward the tentacles of the dark matter. Through the tentacles of the dark matter, the Devil Queen used her magic wand to melt a passage, and once again entered the dark matter. After hundreds of thousands of miles, they rushed out of the dark matter, and returned to the Empire of Darkness. You are the Devil Queen, right? The vulture asked with a trembling voice. Yes, I am the Devil Queen. The dead princess said. The vulture suddenly became extremely excited and said, Can you make me very powerful? Prince Li Ming said that I am very, very important to the Holy Church. So much so that they are not even willing to give me a second-class evil spirit? The Devil Queen nodded and said, That's right. The vulture said, Then please make me powerful immediately. I want all those who have offended me to taste the hellish consequences. The Devil Queen smiled and nodded. Don't worry, you will soon become powerful. The vulture asked, How powerful? Beyond your imagination. The Devil Queen said. The vulture asked, Is it as powerful as Yang Dingtian? The Devil Queen smiled, and did not say anything. Then, the vulture saw the incomparably huge dark castle, as well as the astonishing dark dragons, terrifying earth dragons and dark warriors, and suddenly felt the blood in her body boiling and said, This is the Legion of Doom, right? That's right. The Devil Queen said. Ha 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 ha. The vulture sneered and said, The Council of Light is dead for sure. The human countries are dead for sure. Yang Dingtian's army is finished. They are completely finished, ha ha ha. I am so happy, I am so happy. The Devil Queen ignored it, and continued to fly with the vulture towards the center of the Empire of Darkness. They flew to the Skirich imperial capital. The Devil Queen bathed the vulture in burned incense, then changed into an incomparably luxurious dark dress. Finally, she was brought to an incomparably magnificent hall. Your Majesty, I have brought you this 1 in a billion celestial spirit master. The Devil Queen knelt and said. Suddenly, a burst of dark fog suddenly condensed into a figure. It was a mighty and terrifying figure with eyes that were like 2 flames. The Dark King Wentian slowly sat on the throne and said, This is the 4th bride. Yes, Your Majesty, the Devil Queen said. When the vulture heard the 4th bride, her beautiful eyes immediately lit up and said, I am going to be your bride. This is my glory for life. Ha 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 ha. The Demon King Wentian suddenly laughed and said, No, you are not just a bride. You are also the invincible commander of my Legion of Doom. Me? Really? The vulture's delicate body shook violently, and she said in disbelief, All right, it is her, there is no other choice. The Demon King said, Begin the sacrificial ceremony. The Devil Queen glanced at the vulture and said, Your Majesty, that corpse is very, very precious. Are you sure you want to do this now? Yes, the Demon King said. There is no other choice, and her soaring hatred, jealousy, narrow-mindedness, and viciousness, aren't all these darkness what we need? Yes, Your Majesty. The Devil Queen bowed and said, I will do it right away. Then, the Devil Queen carried the vulture's body and directly flew outside. Vulture frowned slightly, as if she was a little impatient with the Devil Queen carrying her. She still wanted to stay with the Demon King for a while. Wasn't he the ruler of the entire world? Moreover, she was about to become his bride, below one person, and above millions of people. The Devil Queen carried the vulture, and arrived above a huge dark castle. This dark castle was different from the other castles. There was not a single dark warrior inside. The refining formation with a diameter of a few hundred meters was operating at a terrifying speed, but there was nothing inside. The fusion formation below was also operating, but there was also nothing inside. Your Majesty, we can begin, the Devil Queen said. Suddenly, a dark flying dragon flew out from below the Skirich imperial capital, with a beautiful and enchanting demon Shura in its claws. Of course, it was just a corpse. The Hell Shura was a hybrid race born from the union of the demon Rakshasa and the Hell Yaksha. The demon Rakshasa had once competed with the Naga for the demigod race, but failed and was slaughtered by the Naga race. In the end, they had no choice but to escape into the depths of the earth's crust, where they would never see the light of day. In the Underworld Empire, Yang Dingtian had once encountered a demigod demon Rakshasa, but it was bitten to death by the Naga Shuang. Moreover, at the Netherworld Ghost Emperor's banquet, he had seen many demigod demon Rakshasas. No matter what, the demon Rakshasa was one of the most powerful races in the world, but now it was completely sealed in the Underworld Empire. Every demon Rakshasa had unparalleled spiritual power, and they were best at charming people. The Hell Yaksha. They were also from the underworld demon race. When the master of Joyous Palace, Lonely Man, fought Zhu Qingzhu, he had transformed into a Helyaksha. The specialty of the Helyaksha was that they had an extremely strong physical body, and they were invulnerable. As for the demon Shura, it was a hybrid between the demon Rakshasa and the Helyaksha. It was the offspring of the two races. It was very rare because these two races had been at odds with each other for a long time, and there were very few cases of them combining. Moreover, even if they combined, most of the children were born with natural disabilities. Only a very small number of the demon Shura were normal. However, this extremely rare demon Shura had the racial talent to cross the two worlds. It had an unparalleled spiritual talent, and it also had an extremely strong physical body. It was because of its rarity that the entire Empire of Darkness had such a corpse of the demon Shura. This demon Shura had a devilish body, but it also had a devilish face. Below its legs were demon hoofs. The wings on its back were sharper than any treasured sword. Its face was uglier and more ferocious than any other race. The curves of its body were hotter than any other race. On its head, there were two ferocious horns, and at its waist was a demon's tail. In short, this was a monster, an extremely tyrannical monster. Of course, right now she was only a corpse. Let's begin. The demon king Wentian's voice slowly rang out. Immediately, the queen devil queen grabbed Vulture and flew above the huge refining array. Below, in the huge refining array, an incomparably terrifying energy solution was boiling and rolling. One moment it was blood red, the next moment, it was a gorgeous green, and the next moment, it was a terrifying black. The incomparably shocking temperature and unparalleled energy were roaring and churning. This refining array was really like a giant refining pot in the 18 levels of hell, and it could destroy mountains and rivers. Vulture was immediately scared out of its wits and said in shock, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Let me go, let me go. I am the Demon King's bride. Your Majesty Demon King, save me." The Queen Devil Queen smiled lightly, and then threw her away. Immediately, with a shrill cry, Vulture's delicate body fell into this terrifying refining array. When she was dozens of meters away from the array, the clothes on her body instantly turned to ashes. Then, her entire body entered the terrifying and ever-changing energy fluid. In an instant, her entire delicate body completely disintegrated and disappeared. At the same time, from the Skirich imperial capital, a colorless light suddenly appeared. It was like the tentacles of a demon, and it penetrated into the refining array. Immediately after, the wyvern grabbed Demon Shura's corpse and flew above the refining array. Whoosh! It directly threw Demon Shura's corpse down. In an instant, Demon Shura's corpse also turned to ashes and completely disintegrated. Then, the entire Skirich imperial capital suddenly burst into bright light. Pa 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 pa. Countless huge lightning bolts crazily struck the refining array. The energy solution in the refining array quickly spun, spun and spun. Gradually, the energy solution in the refining array completely turned transparent and colorless. In the end, it completely turned into nothingness. Then, the countless energy powder inside was thrown out of the refining array and turned into a gust of wind that blew directly into another fusion array. The entire fusion array began to glow. Countless crystals and treasures poured into the fusion array. The entire fusion array released a dazzling light. Countless tentacles crazily devoured the power of the entire world. Wu Yoming's guess was correct. The reason why the world of ice and snow, the demon realm, and the yin-yang mirror, these three continents had died so quickly was all because of one reason. Because the energy of the three continents had been absorbed and devoured by the entire Empire of Darkness. And the blood-like river water of the Ecstasy River was indeed the product of countless legion of dooms shattering. The fusion array spun crazily, crazily devouring energy, crazily completing the fusion of life and races. In the end, everything stopped. The door of the melting array slowly opened. A peerless beauty, a brand new little princess Vulture, a fusion of Demon Shura and a human, was born. Vulture had been reborn. Chapter 925. The brand new Vulture slowly walked out. Her face was still the same as before. Her facial features were still the same. However, she looked like a completely different person. Her youthful charm was gone. Instead, it was replaced by a magical beauty and seductive charm. Her eye sockets had deepened, and her pupils had turned into a seductive purple. Her nose became high and pointed. Her lips had become plump and fiery red. Her face and even the skin on her body had become whiter. It was no less white than Wu Maji's. It was similar to the whiteness of the white people on earth. Her face had also become longer. Therefore, although her facial features were still vultures, the contours of her face had deepened. Her entire face had become especially seductive and mysterious. The size of the airport that Vulture had been brooding over previously was no less than Wu Maji's. Her slender waist was as seductive as a snake's. In short, it was the purest form of a demon's body. Of course, she was still very different from a human. First of all, she had purplish-red wings on her back. They were purely the wings of a demon. Their shape was similar to that of a bat's, but they were more beautiful. Her ears were completely the ears of a demon. They were very sharp. Also, her jade feet had disappeared. In their place were the hooves of a demon. As for her hands, although they still had the appearance of human hands, they had especially sharp fingernails. They were long and innately purplish-red in color. Her hair was also purplish-red. She had turned from a one-in-a-million beauty into a peerless beauty at the top of the pyramid. Whoosh! She flapped her wings and flew in the air. She let out a hoarse and seductive voice. Yang Dingtian, you will soon see my revenge. I will make all those who have hurt me suffer a fate worse than death. Then, she let out an incomparably terrifying and seductive smile. She suddenly raised her jade hands high. Whoosh 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 whoosh. In an instant, all the dark wyverns and dark colossal dragons within a few hundred meters were shattered into pieces and turned into countless energy. Then, it began to condense in her hands, revive, and transform into an even more terrifying flying dragon. Queen Devil Queen looked at all of this and revealed a seductive smile. She slowly said, "The most crucial part of the Legion of Doom has been fixed." At this point, Vulture, who had suffered all kinds of humiliation and torture, finally welcomed the peak of her life and completed the most terrifying rebirth. Wuxia had been wandering aimlessly for a few months now. In Yang Dingtian's words, this should be a very happy time, like an immortal roaming the world. However, to Wuxia, he was like a walking corpse, completely unable to find any home. Just like that, he walked aimlessly at the edge of the world. He went to the coast of the East Sea, went to the extreme south, went to the east parting grassland, and went to the extreme West Sea. He wanted to find a place to stay, but he could not find it at all. He had stayed in the Vulture Palace for too long, nearly 200 years. As long as he left the Vulture Palace, he would feel like a lonely ghost, unable to find any sense of security. However, now the Vulture Palace had been completely reduced to ruins. There was nothing left. Even his own daughter, the most beloved spirit vulture, had been betrayed to Yang Dingtian by his own mouth. Right now, it was unknown whether she was dead or alive. He had become a true loner. His hatred for Yang Dingtian in his heart seemed to deepen day by day. However, he could not arouse the desire for revenge at all. It was not fear, but a kind of complete desolation. Just like that, he wandered like a walking corpse, wandering, until one day, Crown Prince Li Ming appeared in front of him. "Senior Wuxia, it's time. I'll take you to the Temple of Annihilation," Li Ming said. Wuxia looked at Li Ming. It was hard to tell whether it was anger or sarcasm. It was because of the appearance of Crown Prince Li Ming that he provoked Yang Dingtian, leading to the destruction of the entire Vulture Palace. At that time, when Yang Dingtian destroyed the Vulture Palace and captured the vulture, where was Crown Prince Li Ming? He was completely sitting on the sidelines, watching the Vulture Palace be destroyed. "Thank you, Crown Prince Li Ming, but I'm old and don't want to travel thousands of miles." Wuxia declined politely. Crown Prince Li Ming said, "At the wedding, you will see your daughter, the vulture. She has completely changed now. She is only second to one and above millions. She has become a true ruler, who can summon the wind and summon the rain." Wuxia said in shock. "Wasn't she imprisoned by Yang Dingtian?" Crown Prince Li Ming said, His Excellency Yang Dingtian is already in our hands. He will also participate in this grand wedding." Walingzi immediately gasped and said, "It is the old slave's honor to be able to participate in young master's wedding." "Then please." Crown Prince Li Ming said that at the same time. Princess Mu Dan slowly descended to the Temple of Blood and said, "Senior Dugu, it's time." Dugu Xiao opened his eyes and said with a tremble, "It's finally time?" "Yes." Mu Dan said. "Oh then let's go." Dugu Xiao said. A few hours later, the lonely man who had been in seclusion in the joyous palace for many years also appeared behind Princess Mu Dan. At the same time, at the southern end of the first dark realm, at the border of the abyss, Dongli, who had not been seen for a long time, appeared at the border of the abyss. Behind him were more than 200 Fox clan experts. Leading them was Yao Li's brother, the young master of the Goldena clan Yao Ming. There was also Jiya's cousin, Yao Mi, the former fiancé of the Moro clan's young master, Yao Lung. That's right, the two factions that were originally at odds with each other in the Dark Realm had completely stood together. Because of Dongli they stood together. Dongli had the void crack fire and could travel through the border of the abyss. Yongxi Wentian felt the great fissure in the Dark Realm, so he ordered Dongli to immediately enter the Dark Realm and bring the remaining Fox clan experts out of the Dark Realm. Therefore, just as Yao Ming and all the Fox clan experts were in despair, Dongli appeared in front of them and told them that he could bring them out of this damned Dark Realm and return to the Little Western Paradise. Moreover, there were no conditions. Not only that, he also showed them the token of the chairman of the Little Western Paradise. Therefore, Dongli had completely subdued the two factions of the Fox Demon clan. Then, he personally used the void crack fire to pass through the border of the abyss and arrived at the first Dark Realm. Now they were about to leave the Dark Realm and enter the human countries. Dongli came before the young master of the Goldena clan, Yao Lung, and bowed. "Young master Yao Lung, I have a small favor to ask of you." Yao Lung said, "Sir Dongli is our savior, please tell me what to do." Dongli said, "In a few days, it will be the wedding of Prince Li Ming of the Temple of Annihilation. Before you all return to the Little Western Paradise, may I have the honor to invite you all to the Temple of Annihilation to attend the wedding?" Yao Lung only hesitated for a moment before saying, "Such a grand occasion, of course I can't ask for more." "Then many thanks," Dongli said. Then, he released the void crack fire and entered the abyss. The void crack fire split and split continuously, and instantly filled the entire abyss. Then, the black and white flames began to merge, and the entire abyss turned into a transparent crystal. Dongli said to young master Yao Lung, "Everyone please, you can leave this damned Dark Realm. Long live." Instantly, the Fox clan experts who had defeated the Fox clan experts cheered excitedly. Then one by one they jumped into the abyss. 2 days later, a few hundred Fox clan experts and Dongli appeared in the northern sky above the snowy land. A few hundred people instantly turned into countless meteors and flew towards the west, north of Sky Demon City, the Toxic Sea region. An incomparably beautiful and enchanting figure suddenly rushed out of the sea. Flapping her huge wings, she instantly flew to a height of tens of thousands of meters, and then flew towards the southwest. It had been many years, and this was probably the first time the Queen Devil Queen had returned to the ground. She passed by Sky Demon City, the land of chaos, the northwest continent and the southwest continent. On the vast sea, she saw countless Council of Light warships. This was the strongest Tiando League in history, compared to the Tiando League that Nihility Piaoling had 200 years ago. It was dozens of times stronger. Yang Dingtian had only used a few short years to unify the entire human country and created the strongest war machine in thousands of years. He was really amazing. Unfortunately, he had met the Demon King Wentian, and the Demon King Wentian had coincidentally found evil energy, Queen Medusa, the ruins of the martial energy civilization from hundreds of thousands of years ago, and the incomparably huge empire of darkness. Therefore, no matter how strong the Council of Light was, in front of the Legion of Doom, It was just a child's toy. Queen Devil Queen flapped her wings and flew towards the south. Finally, she arrived at an island that looked like silver sand. This was the Netherworld Sea region. Sect Master Wu Yu. Queen Devil Queen has come to seek an audience. The surface of the sea was calm. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew, and countless amounts of seawater began to condense into a magnificent and devastatingly beautiful figure. It was the master of the Netherworld Sea, Wu Yu. How have you been? We meet again. However, should I call you Nihility Piao Ling, or Queen Devil Queen? The face formed by seawater was still incomparably beautiful. Wu Yu slowly said. As you wish. Queen Devil Queen said. Did Li Ming send you an invitation? He sent it. Wu Yu said. However, I won't be going to Li Ming's wedding. Moreover, it's just a plot against Yang Dingtian, isn't it? No, it's the new Demon King's wedding. Queen Devil Queen said. Wu Yu's expression changed. Demon King's wedding. But the bride isn't me? Why should I go? Queen Devil Queen said. You already have Yongxi Wentian. Wu Yu sneered. Is he Wentian? He isn't. The Wentian I love doesn't have this kind of personality. He doesn't have this kind of thinking. He has the most unconstrained thinking in the world, the most romantic feelings, and the most unswerving determination. Yongxi Wentian is so feminine, so scheming, and so hypocritical. He's not the one I love. If you say that, he will be very sad. Queen Devil Queen said. Wu Yu said. Believe me, I've already tried. I can't do it. After that, Wu Yu said. Demon King's wedding, then who is the bride? It's definitely you, right? Not only me, there are 4 of them. Queen Devil Queen said. Moreover, the new Demon King is not only Wentian. Yang Dingtian is also among them. Wu Yu's body trembled violently. That means that I can become a true woman, can give birth to descendants, and can give birth to a demigod, right? That's right, that's the case. Queen Devil Queen said. Ha ha ha, pitiful Yongxi Wentian. Not only was he abandoned by me, he was also abandoned by you. Wu Yu laughed hoarsely. If you want me to participate in the wedding, that's fine, but I want to be the 5th bride. As you wish, my sister. Queen Devil Queen said. Time is of the essence, we should head to the shrine. Shrine, is there really a shrine? Wu Yu asked. There really is a shrine, and it will definitely surpass your imagination, the 5th bride. Queen Devil Queen said. Instantly, Wu Yu's peerless figure flew out from the sea. After that, the 2 beauties flew tens of thousands of meters in the air, towards the northeast. All the brides were here, and all the guests were also here. Chapter 926. Princess Mu Dan led Duga Xiao, Gudu Muran, Gudu Wuhuan, Lung Ao, Yang Zheng Shimanju, and Xiao Ruhan as they flew towards Sky Devil City. That's right, Shimanju, the undying cockroach, and the servant with the surname N, was still alive. This adopted son of Shiman Wuya first sought refuge with Yang Yan and Qin Xiaobai, before seeking refuge with Qin Qiqi. After Qin Qiqi was defeated, he sought refuge with Zhu Qingzhu before seeking refuge with Ning Wuming. After Ning Wuming was defeated, he sought refuge with Wu Yuming. After Wu Yuming was defeated, he sought refuge with Princess Mu Dan. Now, he might have gotten what he wanted. He obtained Princess Mu Dan's 2nd great evil spirit, and cultivated for over a year in the taboo continent's illusory realm. As for Qiu Ruhan, she was once the mistress of the northwest Qin city, and Qin Wanchou's wife. Because of the Autumn Water Sword sect, she broke off relations with Qin Wanchou, and sold her own body to obtain Ning Wuming's 4th great evil spirit. Now, she followed the same plan, and used her own body to exchange for Dongli's 2nd grade evil spirit. Gudu Wuhuan, the young lord of the Joyous Palace, was once Dugu Fengwu's suitor. Similarly, he was the one who bestowed Princess Mu Dan's 2nd great evil spirit. There was another person, the servant by Queen Hai Xian's side. He was once the greatest traitor of the Mystic Sky sect, the world-renowned shaman spirit master, Gui Wuzi. He was the #1 subordinate by Dongli's side in the grassland of Dongli. Therefore, he naturally obtained Dongli's 2nd great evil spirit. There was another person, Zhu Hongshua's younger brother, Zhu Hongyu. As a hardcore opponent of the Council of Light, and a resolute usurper of the mystic sky sect. He also obtained Dongli's second-grade evil spirit. These 6 second-grade evil spirits formed a team and cultivated for over a year in the Taboo Continent's illusory realm. In the illusory realm of the Taboo Continent, they had gone even further than Yang Dingtian. Therefore, the 4 of them had all reached the advanced martial grandmaster level. As for Dongli, he led hundreds of demonic Fox Clan's experts and landed in Sky Demon City. At this moment, the doors of the Shang Palace were tightly shut. The experts brought by Mu Dan and Dongli were like raindrops as they landed in the Shang Palace. The master of the Demon City's Shang Palace, Salambas, and his second wife, Kong Bao who had once tried to seduce Yang Dingtian, led a group of black-eyed experts and knelt neatly in the main hall of the Shang Palace. The Temple of Annihilation's head of internal affairs, Salomas, greets Princess Mu Dan and young Master Dongli. Then he, the enchanting Kong Bao and a group of black-eyed experts all knelt down and kowtowed in unison. Yang Dingtian had suspected many times that the Shang Palace of the Demon City was the property of the evil ways, the property of the Temple of Annihilation. But in the end, all his suspicions were dispelled, and the facts proved that his guess was correct. Moreover, even Wu Yuming did not know about this secret. In fact, even Mu Dan and Dongli did not know about it before. The Shang Palace of the Demon City was only responsible for one person, and that was Prince Li Ming. And the entire Sky Demon City was, in fact, a city that completely belonged to the evil ways. The Shang Palace of the Demon City had controlled the economy of the entire human countries for hundreds of years. In these hundreds of years, the Shang Palace of the Demon City had provided an astronomical amount of resources and treasures for the Temple of Annihilation. And the food and meat supplied to the Snake People Empire, they were all provided by the Shang Palace of the Demon City. That's right, the Sky Demon City had been sealed for several years, but the amount of food and meat in their storage was astronomical. In fact, in the Empire of Darkness, any food and meat would not rot at all. Only the heavens knew how many strategic resources the entire Empire of Darkness had stored. Evil ways had failed every time there was an apocalyptic war in the past 1,000 years. However, the Temple of Annihilation had taken a different approach and dominated the world's economy for 1,000 years. Therefore, in the past few hundred years, the Shang Palace of the Demon City was the one who really called the shots and controlled more than half of the world. Whether it was the Tiando League or the evil ways, large-scale transactions and currency circulation, they were all provided by the Shang Palace of the Demon City. After Yang Dingtian completely unified the human countries, the Shang Palace of the Demon City instantly declined. Not only did it decline, but it was completely deserted, and all transactions stopped. The demon coins that had been circulating for hundreds of years had also become trash. Yang Dingtian had completely sealed off the entire Shang Palace of the Demon City. Therefore, the Sky Demon City went from being the most prosperous city in the world to being the most withered city. Moreover, Yang Dingtian had wanted to completely occupy the Sky Demon City more than once, but he gave up every time, because he had a vague feeling that this place could not be touched for the time being. As expected, it could not be touched. The Shang Palace of the Demon City was indeed the most important base of the Temple of Annihilation in the human countries, and even the only base. Soon, 2 streams of light suddenly appeared in the main hall. It was Prince Li Ming and Wu Lingzi of the Vulture Palace. Everyone knelt down again and said, "Greetings, Prince Li Ming." Even Dong Li had to bow and salute. Only Princess Mu Dan had a calm expression. After Crown Prince Li Ming landed, he immediately looked at Peony, not bothering to hide his deep affection for her. "Dongli, you've worked hard on this trip to the Dark Realm," Li Ming said with a smile. "It's my duty," Dongli said. "I haven't congratulated your highness on your marriage yet." "Ha ha ha." Li Ming laughed. "Oh right, brother. What are your plans regarding Netherworld?" Dongli asked. Li Ming shook his head and said, "Him? He's gone. He's gone. He perished together with the dark matter." Dongli said, "But the Devil Queen can melt the dark matter and rescue Netherworld, can't she? Netherworlds should have been completely suppressed now, or even destroyed. Li Ming shook his head and said, "Even the Devil Queen probably can't save him. An inconceivable change has happened." Dong Li replied, "What about that Ling Wu beside him? She should be in Cloud Heaven City right now. Do you want her to come and participate in your wedding, and see how young Ding Tian is unable to beg for death?" "No need." Li Ming shook his head and said, "She's just a small character. There's no need." Then Li Ming said, "Oh right, how's Dishi Bian?" Dong Li's eyes were filled with shock and said, "I can't believe it. Maybe she'll become the new ruler of the Underworld Empire." At this moment, there was a charming sound in the air. Then, everyone's eyes lit up. Suddenly, there were two beautiful figures in the hall, the Devil Queen and Sect Master Wu Jin. Suddenly, everyone knelt down, including Li Ming and Mu Dan. "Greetings, Your Majesty Devil Queen. Greetings, Sect Master Wu Jin." Originally, there was no need to kneel to Wu Yu. However, there was no other way. "Sect Master, Wu Yu seemed to have an affair with His Majesty the Demon King." The Devil Queen glanced indifferently and said, "There's still one person missing." Crown Prince Li Ming said, "Who's missing?" "Vulture Palace Wu Daozi." The Devil Queen said. When these words came out, Wu Lingzi suddenly trembled. He bowed and said, "Reporting to Your Majesty Devil Queen, Wu Daozi has been killed by Yang Dingtian." "No, he has a second-grade evil spirit in his body. Yang Dingtian can't kill him." The Devil Queen said, "He must have been sent to the Death Continent by Yang Dingtian, using the void-splitting fire." When these words came out, everyone was stunned. The Devil Queen said, "Dong Li, come with me to look." "Yes, Your Majesty Devil Queen." Dong Li said. Then, he released the void-splitting fire, which kept growing bigger and bigger. Finally, a separate space channel suddenly split open, leading directly to the Death Continent, the channel of the Dark World. The Devil Queen jumped and flew directly into the channel of the Dark World. As for Dong Li, she also quickly rushed in. Suddenly, the dark door created by the void-splitting fire disappeared. The Devil Queen and Dong Li completely disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Inside the Death Continent's dark world, Dong Li said, "Your Majesty Devil Queen, the void-splitting fire's dark door is random, so we don't know where Wu Daozi will be exiled to." The Devil Queen said, "Although it's random, there's a certain pattern. What level of void-splitting fire is teleported to what level of dark world? Your current cultivation is roughly equivalent to rank 13, which is 2 levels lower than Yang Dingtian. Therefore, Wu Daozi will not be more than 5,000 miles away from us." Then, the Devil Queen and Dong Li suddenly flew into the air. Whoosh! The Devil Queen released a Yang Heaven, an Earth Mystic Flame of the Chaos attribute. Then, she released a Yin Heaven, an Earth Mystic Flame of the Chaos attribute. After releasing to the extreme, they fiercely collided in the sky. Pa! Suddenly, a lightning bolt hundreds of thousands of miles tore through the entire sky. In an instant, the space of hundreds of miles was as bright as day. Within thousands of miles, one could see this resplendent brilliance. Dong Li couldn't help but be stunned and said, "Devil Queen, you also know this?" The Devil Queen said with a smile, "Of course I know. Lightning is the unique talent of the Nihility race. Because among the cultivation techniques we practice, there is the Yin-Yang Chaos formula. Of course, this is a simplified version of the pig-slaying sword technique. Moreover, the highest level is only equivalent to the simplified 4th level of the pig-slaying sword technique." Dong Li said, "Now, Yang Dingtian has already learned the 5th level of the pig-slaying sword technique." The Devil Queen said, "Yes, the 5th level of the pig-slaying sword technique, the Great Space Technique. It is the supreme martial Tao that our hidden sect has never come into contact with for generations. Therefore, Yang Dingtian will become a unique person." Wu Daozi had been exiled to the Dark World for more than half a year. However, he felt that it had been decades, or even 100 years. This was a land of complete death. There were hundreds of times the gravity here. In the beginning, he was still desperately exploring, desperately running, wanting to leave this place. He wanted to return to the human countries to take revenge, to kill Yang Dingtian's family, to kill Yang Dingtian's Council of Light, all of them. However, No matter how he ran, he could never reach the end, and he could never escape the darkness. Moreover, the deeper he went, the heavier his body became. In the end, his body actually weighed millions of kilograms, and finally even tens of millions of kilograms. Even if he was a half-saint, he could not bear it at all and had to retreat. Then he found the only light, which was the border of the abyss. He really wanted to jump in, but he clearly knew that he would definitely die if he jumped in. Although he did not know much about the border of the abyss, he had heard a little about it. Any life, even if it was evil spirit energy, would definitely die if they jumped into the border of the abyss. They would directly turn into ashes. After running for a few months, he finally gave up all hope and lay on the edge of the abyss. Day after day, he lived in a drunken stupor, and each day felt like a year. Why was he lying on the edge of the abyss? Because he wanted to commit suicide. There was a second-class evil spirit in his body, so he could not commit suicide even if he wanted to. The only way was to jump into the abyss. However, he was reluctant to die. He felt that he still had hope. However, he had become more and more desperate recently and wanted to jump down more than once. Suddenly, in the distant sky, shocking lightning abruptly erupted. This lightning could be seen at least thousands of miles away. The first thing he thought of was Yang Dingtian. Only Yang Dingtian could burst out such shocking lightning. Suddenly, his fighting spirit soared, and his hatred soared to the sky. Yang Dingtian, you actually dared to come. I will definitely tear you into pieces. Even if I can't kill you, I will definitely die with you. Suddenly, Wu Daozi madly ran in the direction of the lightning. After a few hours, he arrived at the location of the lightning and saw two mermaids. Suddenly his whole body shot out like a cannonball, and he shouted, Yang Dingtian, give me your life. However, halfway through, his whole body was suddenly fixed, and he could not move. An incomparably powerful energy instantly locked his whole body. Wu Daozi, we are here to take you out, the Devil Queen said indifferently. Dongli frowned and looked at Wu Daozi, who was currently as thin as a ghost, and said indifferently, This is Her Majesty the Devil Queen. Why haven't you kneeled to greet her? Wu Daozi trembled, and then boundless ecstasy welled up. He said, I can go out? I can go out and take revenge? Then he suddenly knelt down and kowtowed. Greetings to Her Majesty the Devil Queen. Many thanks to the Devil Queen. Many thanks to the Devil Queen. Following that, Wu Daozi raised his head and said, Your Majesty the Devil Queen, may I ask how Yang Dingtian is now? How is the Vulture Palace? Dongli said, After you were exiled, Yang Dingtian invaded the southern barbarian continent. At this time, the Vulture Palace has already become a ruin, and the entire southern barbarian continent has already been occupied. Instantly, Walingzi was furious. He said, Then what about my granddaughter Ling Tuer? Dongli said, She left Yang Dingtian and wandered the world. Yang Dingtian, just you wait. I will definitely kill your family, your wife, your children, and your Council of Light. Wu Daozi roared fiercely. Dongli said slowly, That won't be necessary, because Yang Dingtian is now in our hands. He can neither live nor die. Moreover, very soon, there will be no more Yang Dingtian in this world. Really? Wu Daozi said with a trembling voice. Really? Dongli said. Once he hands over the greater space technique, he is worthless. Queen Devil Queen glanced at Dongli indifferently. It seemed that with the news of Yang Dingtian being imprisoned, Dongli also appeared arrogant and frivolous. Let's go back to the Temple of Annihilation. Queen Devil Queen said indifferently. Then Dongli, Devil Queen, and Wu Daozi walked toward the door of darkness in the Skull Hall. A few hours later, they walked to the door of darkness. Dongli released the void-splitting fire, and immediately the door of darkness turned into nothingness, directly connecting to the Skull Hall outside. The three of them left the dark world of the Death Continent and entered the Skull Hall. Inside, after waiting for less than an hour, a figure immediately came in. At this time, the door of the human kingdom had been occupied by the evil ways again. Then, the three of them quickly rushed out, left the Skull Hall, and entered the Forbidden Continent Sea area. A few hours later, the three of them returned to Sky Demon City, and landed in the main hall of the demon city's merchant palace. Then, the owner of the merchant palace, Salambas, opened the wall and turned a huge wheel. Suddenly, the entire hall kept falling down, 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 down. They didn't know how deep they fell. Maybe tens of thousands of meters, maybe hundreds of thousands of meters. Finally, the fall stopped. Then, a circular hole suddenly split open in the center of the hall. Below, there was a void, and under the void, there was surging dark matter. Queen Devil Queen took out her magic staff and flew directly into the hole. The primordial Naga eye on the magic staff released a bright light, melting a huge hole in the dark matter. Everyone behind followed closely behind Queen Devil Queen and flew into the hole. They passed through hundreds of miles of dark matter. Whoosh! Suddenly, everyone rushed into the Empire of Darkness. Queen Devil Queen led hundreds of people toward the center of the dark world, flying toward the Skirich imperial capital. Looking at the countless huge dark castles, everyone was suffocating. In the Skirich imperial capital, the demon king Wentian said slowly, "Little brother Yang Dingtian, the bride and guests are all here. The wedding is about to begin." The wedding was about to begin. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.